and mechanical work.
We are live on YouTube.
Okay. So
Okay, it didn't. So I'm just gonna make a new one. You're right. Okay, I'll do that now.
so we can start. Great.
I'm still admitting people, but yes. And remember, we are streaming live to YouTube.
I know.
Can you please share the link to YouTube here?
So okay, if we don't have many people queued up waiting, I would maybe start with introduction and we play the video. Okay. So, dear participants, we are happy to welcome you to Queering Wikipedia 2023. It's the first edition of the conference format after 2020 that was initially planned to be in Linz, Austria. Queering Wikipedia 2023 is organized by Wikimedia LGBT user group, by the Queering Wikipedia team, and partners of Wikimedia movement as bilingual, hybrid, and translocal event. It includes in-person events as Queering Wikipedia notes across 5 continents on over 10 locations, spanning from 12th till 17th of May, and with online program that you've just joined today on Sunday 14th and Wednesday 17th, which is the International Day of Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia. And for the start, we would like to show a video greeting we got from Mariana Iskander, our Wikimedia Foundation CEO, and then we'll follow up with service information.
We are not getting sound, Ivor.
Yeah, sorry.
Or we can do the service information now. Yeah, by taking part in this conference. Okay, by taking part in this conference, you are basically subscribing to our safe space policy, or present periodically during the program
We have lost your sound, Jelko. Please bear with us, everybody.
So,
Did you?
Yeah.
What was the last thing you heard?
Just the very beginning. You should start again.
Okay.
Start again.
Okay, so we are up to a slower start. Yeah, it's yeah. So welcome to Quitting Wikipedia 2023 conference. We are happy to welcome you in this first conference format after the 2020 attempt that was due about this time in Linz in Austria. And Quitting Wikipedia 2023 is organized by Wikimedia LGBT user group, by the Quitting Wikipedia organizing team and the partners in Wikimedia movement as both bilingual and hybrid, which means it includes translocal events. These are in-person events, so-called Quitting Wikipedia nodes across 5 continents and over 10 locations, spanning in between 12th and 17th of May. And with the online program that you've just joined, and you can join again on Sunday and Wednesday, May 17th, which is the International Day of Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia. And to start off with a greeting, we will see the video from CEO of Wikimedia Foundation, Mariana Iskander.
Sorry.
Hope the video works.
Still no audio.
No.
If
So-
we are not getting,
No audio from Mariana. So the Spaniards get subtitles.
it works.
Should work. Should work.
In countries spanning over 5 continents:
It works.
Ghana, Argentina, Croatia, Nigeria, Germany, the United States, and more. It's really remarkable. I also wanted to just say that the work that will be represented in these events. Hello, my name is Mariana Iskander. I am the CEO of the Wikimedia Foundation. Thank you for inviting me to speak with all of you today to launch this year's conference. I want to first recognize the incredible effort that has gone into organizing this global event. In fact, I had a chance to speak with some of you in October last year when you were in the planning phases. You've expanded and diversified your efforts, including at least 6 in-person events this week in countries spanning over 5 continents: Ghana, Argentina, Croatia, Nigeria, Germany, the United States, and more. It's really remarkable. I also wanted to just say that the work that will be represented in these events, they've been gaining momentum across our movement. Initiatives in Spanish-speaking communities have led to a 300% increase in articles created in the last year. Francophone Wikimedia projects that also include Wikidata and Commons have expanded with numerous new articles and updates on existing ones. And that's really due to the work of many of you that are here today. I've had the privilege of continuing to get to know several of the folks that have organized this conference and trying to continue listening and learning from them. I am grateful for the deep commitment and dedication that has gone into increasing not just membership and representation of this community, but your collaborations with other groups and organizations, both within the Wikimedia movement and beyond. Because of this work, the Foundation's better able to support Wikimedians across the world and help our staff support volunteers in closing representation gaps in both content and editorship. I know that this gathering will be full of celebration and content and an opportunity to reflect together. I'm always grateful for a chance to add my voice of appreciation and I hope that you enjoy the celebrations together.
I hope this time it was clear with good sound.
It was. Have we set up Francesc as interpreter?
As for technical information, we are going to share with you a document of our friendly space policy, which is here to kind of guide our governance of both Zoom and Jitsi and Big Blue Button use, as well as the Telegram group that you will also get as a link to communicate during the conference.
Zeta, como en este
As
momento we don't have
organizers, we will
interpreter here. Can I please translate into
yeah,
English, into
keep
Spanish, just for a second?
reminding you of this during the program of each session. For those who are hearing us in Spanish, I hope it works well and that we can introduce the first keynote speaker, Nishan Shah, who is going to give an introduction. Well, he will going to give introductory keynote, and we'll follow up with Q&A. The Nishant, are you there?
I'm right here.
Hold on a moment, Z. Vic needs
Yes.
to say in Spanish
Dr.
first.
I don't hear. Dr. Nishant Shah was our keynote plan in 2020. And since then, many things have happened. He actually held his keynote at another festival on those days in Linz in Austria, talking about pandemic. And this time we will going to talk to him about artificial intelligence and phenomena of outing, which is especially interesting for LGBTIQ populations, and which is his new field of interest or new direction within his academic interests. Nishant has moved since then from Artes in Netherlands to Hong Kong, and has been accommodating our huge time difference and kind of last moment preparations to get this happen after 3 years of delay. Nishant, welcome. Maybe one more interesting aspect of your work. You were involved in co-starting Indian think tank for media, that is the biggest Wikimedia partner in India, and that has been doing Wikipedia related work since, and especially outreach around Wikipedia and Wikimedia literacy in general. Nishant identifies as a feminist scholar, and I would say also activist among academics, in a way that his work is always engaging and is not just informed, but much influenced in current practices of feminist, queer, decolonial work. Nishant, would you like to add something that I missed that is relevant to know for this specific context?
No, I think we are fine. If you want, I can start sharing some of the new research I'm so excited to present to the community.
Sorry to interrupt, but we need to set up the translation into Spanish.
Yeah, I'm doing it, but okay. Sorry, you'll just give me the 1 minute.
It seems like it will take like a minute.
More.
While we set up the translation into Spanish, should I make a little introduction in Spanish for people who's Spanish speaking? Yeah.
Yes.
I move forward. Okay. Sid, can you please mute yourself? I can hear your background noise. So, voy a pasar al español para hacer una breve presentación para las personas hispanoparlantes aquí. Primero que nada, pedirles disculpas por las demoras con la interpretación. Estamos teniendo algunos problemas técnicos, pero los resolveremos pronto. Estamos dando inicio a las conferencias Queer in Wikipedia, que va a tener lugar en 3 días de manera virtual, hoy día 12, domingo 14 y miércoles 17. Va a haber también algunas actividades paralelas en presencial, que es lo que estamos llamando como nodos, en al menos 5 continentes distintos, y que se van a expandir a lo largo de los días de la conferencia. Vimos hace unos minutos el video de presentación de Mariana, de Wikimedia Foundation, que nos daba la bienvenida y al que tuvieron acceso con subtítulos y que va a estar subido y disponible para que lo vean cuando quieran. Y estamos a punto de comenzar la sesión de Nishan, que viene a compartirnos sus experiencias y viene sobre todo el mundo de la academia, se considera un humanista y feminista. Ahora en breve va a tomar la palabra cuando logremos solucionar los problemas técnicos.
Thank you for the translation. So this was successive instead of simultaneous. Owen, can you try to add the translation? Because on this side,
Here everything is good, but still.
it doesn't work.
If you make me host briefly, I can do that.
So,
The me that has the camera on. While we wait. Oh, I am now. Cool. Okay, that should be done, Francesca. Are you seeing that correctly? Yes. Cool. So our next session is in English for people who need Spanish. There is a button down on your screen with a little globe where you can choose Spanish. Vic, do you want to repeat that?
La siguiente sesión va a ser en inglés, pero ahora ya contamos con la interpretación. Muchas gracias, Francesc. La interpretación pueden acceder simplemente yendo a la barra inferior en Zoom y ver hay un globito con los usos horarios que dice interpretación. Hacen clic ahí y salen del audio original y buscan el idioma. Van a tener que pasar a español cuando la sesión es en inglés y si no, van a escuchar que el audio que sea original en español como este va a estar por el canal principal.
Nishant, go ahead.
All right, let's hope that this works out. I'm going to add one additional complication of adding visual material to all this translation practices just to see how it works out. Owen, can you just let me know if this is working and if the slides are clear?
It is, yes.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much. All right, good evening, folks. Well, it's evening here and sitting in Hong Kong right now. My name is Nishant Shah. My pronouns are he and him. I am a professor of global media at the Chinese University of Hong Kong and a faculty associated with the Queensland Center for Engineering Society of the Harvard University. I'm the director of the newly emerging digital narrative studio. I'm just mentioning all the 3 affiliations because the work I'm sharing with you today is work that I'm doing and collaborations between all of these 3 institutional spaces. My work and new experience are at the intersection of digital cultures, knowledge commons, gender and sexuality studies, and the questions of social and future justice. And it's a great pleasure, and it's been 3 years in the making to be invited to host this first keynote of the Queer in Wikipedia conference, and the privilege to be able to talk to a community that's, I don't know, one of the most diverse, critical, and open, as well as among the longest prevailing and persistent communities online. And as a keynote speaker, I have the privilege to not speak about the present, but about the future. And particularly in the context of artificial intelligence-driven futures that almost all of our digital communities are informed by, it's perhaps important to start thinking about the relationship between AI and queerness. So I will begin with a particular case from 2017.
Nishant,
Yeah.
can we just interrupt you? We hear you, but it's not clearly audible. Can we maybe just use slides and not video if it's the bandwidth issue?
Let me see if the issue is the bandwidth, or maybe I can switch my microphone.
Because previously, I think we heard you more clear than now.
What about
Yes.
now? Is this clearer?
Much
It's
better.
better. Yeah.
Okay, then I will stick to that. I had switched to the headphones earlier because I couldn't hear you very well, but
Okay. That was the difference.
I am all right.
Thank you.
Let's see if this is better. Okay.
Much better.
You didn't miss anything in the beginning. I was just introducing myself and talking about what my affiliations are. But we can begin I just wanted to say that as a keynote speaker, I have the privilege not to speak about the present, but about the future. And particularly in the context of artificial intelligence-driven future that almost all our digital communities are informed by, it's important to perhaps think about the relationships between AI and queerness. And I'll begin talking about AI and queerness and then connect it to the challenges that it offers to communities like the Wikipedia community, beginning with a particular case that dates back to 2017. Because it did become a focus point of conversations around AI, gender, and sexuality online. So in their very much reviled and heavily criticized experiment at Stanford University, machine learning and data scientists Mikhail Kosinski and Yulun Wong created a sexual orientation detector, right? So they trained a machine learning algorithm on 35,326 images from public profiles on a US dating website to create composite faces using an aggregate of images from self-identified straight, gay, or lesbian profiles. And they claim that their algorithm can now detect people's sexuality by looking at their faces with more accuracy than human beings. Their academic article was kind of less ambitious and said that when compared to a data set of human detectors inferring sexuality, their algorithms were 81% more effective. So, right, not 81% true, but 81% more effective at distinguishing between gay and straight men, and 74% for the time for women. So several authoritative voices from data science who know more than I do have now debunked this experiment, questioned its validity, and proven that not only was the experiment radically flawed, but that it was fundamentally informed by queer phobia and heteronormative biases. Right? So the work of the Human Rights Campaign, GLAAD, scientists like Blaise Aguilera, Alexandra Todorov, Margaret Mitchell, have shown how science in this particular instance was being used to perpetuate violence in this study. Now, my job is not to figure out whether this study was accurate enough or not, right? I mean, even while this was happening, for example, the Chinese government announced that they have trained a facial recognition algorithm to predict with 90% accuracy whether someone was a convicted criminal, and also the same algorithms were being used for queer detection. But as Sarah Myers-West, Meredith Whitaker, and Kate Crawford have pointed out in their extremely well-considered report on discriminating systems, predictive AI is not just flawed in its prediction, but wrong in its very existence. Right? This is my point of departure for us today. That we understand that these technologies of detection and outing are not to be judged based on whether they are accurate or not, or how accurate they are. That we need to recognize these technologies as darkly continuing traditions of race science, and in particular, the debunked fields of phrenology, which were trying to derive character traits from skull shape and often used by white supremacists in 19th century America and continuing to be used by white supremacists even now. So my talk today then is to understand the context that allows for these kinds of AI weaponizations to happen, and the kind of cultures of knowledge production that support the making and naturalization of these kinds of detection and outing AIs, right? Or in other words, what are the kinds of social, political, and cultural imaginations and presumptions that make it possible for these kinds of outing technologies to emerge? The first, and this is perhaps, I don't know, the most evident to all of us who are invested in knowledge production. Well, the first presumption is that technologies and the knowledge they produce is neutral, right? So the claim of objectivity and neutrality allow for scientists like Kaczynski and Wong to insist that their models of AI are merely describing a reality and that they have no ethical and political responsibility for this description. It is the same confidence in neutrality of technology or even the neutrality of knowledge production, which looks at the brokenness of the world and takes it as natural. They look at conditions of injustice or discrimination or violence and abuse, and in describing and codifying them, reinforce them and hurt the vulnerable, all the while emphasizing that they are merely describing a feature rather than questioning why they need to describe this feature at all. Or in other words, to presume that technology is neutral allows them to weaponize it, and once weaponized, to distance themselves from the consequences of it. This also means that when thinking through the relationship between artificial intelligence and queerness, for instance, the claim is often made that AI is neutral, and if it harms queer people, it's because the queer people are worthy of harm. Because if the world did not want to harm queer people, then the AI would not do it anyway. This is an active fallacy, which separates AI from queerness and then turns a blind eye to the ways in which queerness is actually critical and central to the formations of these kinds of predictive technologies, because it is always used as something that is dirty, contaminated, or in need of detection, right? So the first idea is that we need to understand that specific kinds of technologies, but particularly AI detection technologies, actually resort to and produce the queer as essentially dirty or contaminated. And hence they are there to kind of gentrify and clean the systems of queernesses of different kinds. The second principle that informs this detective AIs is the long-standing history between queerness and technologies of outing. The idea of outing is in competition with the concept of coming out, right? So while coming out in so many different communities is an act of agency, empowerment, self-identification, putting the queer person in control of their narrative and practice, outing replaces the individual's own choices and makes them vulnerable by assigning public gender and sexual identity without the person's information and definitely without their consent. So this is not new. Various technological histories of outing exist. Gregory Mattson summarizes this powerfully when he writes, and I'm just reading from the slide here, 19th century measurement of lesbians' clitorises and homosexual men's hips, to late 20th century claims to have discovered gay genes, gay brains, gay ring fingers, lesbian ears, and gay scalp hair, have all been ways by which historical technologies have been used to dehumanize and persecute sexual minorities under a scientific pretext. So the queer across these histories is not something that the technologies out, but it is in fact a category that technologies use in order to create the baseline and the normal, right? So the queerness then is not an outside of technology, but these technologies of meaning making use the meaning of queer to define the norm. The queer is not on the margins, but at the center of its attention, because everybody is presumed straight, and then straightness no longer needs to be measured, and there is no need for these predictive technologies. So predictive AI needs and defines and creates outliers. And when it comes to gender and sexuality, these technologies use the queer identity to train their data sets, but more importantly, justify their presence by attributing dirt risk, and danger to these queer bodies. Take the recent monkeypox virus spread in 2022. So we were all, barely recovering from the aftermath of COVID-19. And then there was this increased alarm about the rise of new viruses. So when the monkeypox incidence rate started rising, it was evidently garnering a lot of media and public attention. And while there was no scientific evidence or data that the virus was affecting or spreading with more frequency among gay men than straight men, gay men were immediately marked as high-risk populations. Not because of the frequency of spread, but because of the frequency of reporting. It's important to realize, as Alexandra Yuas points out, that sexual health education in a post-HIV world is highest amongst gay men. And hence they started reporting and monitoring their individual and collective health with more alertness than any other similar demography. However, their reporting was immediately misread as them being dirty or risky. They were considered to be potential contaminants, dangerous, and targeted for treatment, education, control, monitoring, surveillance, and risk management. Monkeypox actually got labeled as a gay virus, and healthcare predictive models and AI started creating models of contagion targeting, which was targeting gay men, creating them as dirty, and using platforms, queer dating platforms like Grindr, to subject them to extreme surveillance and experimentation in the name of controlling and managing public health. And the third presumption that I want to share with you about what makes these weaponizations of AI technologies possible is the idea that these weaponized technologies exist because of the narrative strategies that we use to describe human beings and technologies in this human technology interaction, right? Because one of the keenest, perhaps, promises and the biggest myth of digital technologies is cleanliness. There is a continued insistence of how digital technologies are clean and reliable and designed to avoid unwanted contamination. Right? And particularly with artificial intelligence, which is also seen as an evolution of legacy digital systems of computational networks, this rhetoric is strongly present, and you see it in many different ways, like AI for social good or AI for fairness. Because in conceptualizing AI as a solution to problems of inequity or as a driver of social good, what we essentially get is the idea or the story of the human as both creating the problems as well as unable to work towards the social good. For AI to be the cleansing agent, the human then has to be dirty, right? And it's only when we produce the model of the human as unreliable, incompetent, corruptible, or fragile that we can rely upon the notion of AI as fast, predictable, immutable, and robust. The operations of this clean AI thus start naturalizing the idea that the human in itself is dirty and needs constant interventions. And so strong is this narrative that no amount of empirical or anecdotal evidence shifts this idea of flawed AI. So, for example, when trans drivers are locked out, trans drivers who are working for Uber are locked out of the system because facial recognition softwares do not account for transitioning faces, it is the human which is considered unreliable and mutable. For a lot of us who have been following conversations around AI, we know about the stories that came out from the head of Google AI, Timnit Gebru. And Gebru had particularly mentioned that large language models, which are trained on texts from the internet, amplify risk towards racially and sexually marked bodies by subjecting them to abusive language. Her questioning of the cleanliness of AI was literally silenced by the teams from Google, and the direction was very clear that we can question the deployment of AI technologies and have oversight about the harms that they cause, but we don't question the fundamental proposition that AI technologies are clean and will always be needed to clean the dirty human. So if these are the foundational problems of AI mechanics, deployment, and evaluation, if the queer will always have to be produced as dirty to justify the use of AI technologies, it brings us up to the question of what will the communities in Wikipedia do? Because on the one hand, there is an increased integration of AI chatbots, decision-making processes, and predictive models which make knowledge production faster, more streamlined, and easier. And on the other is the undeniable fact that AI technologies keep on producing certain communities, like queer communities, as dirty and hence constantly in need of cleaning and purging. Now, there are some easy answers which are often given to these concerns about queer futures as shaped by these AI technologies, right? So people point out that we need to increase the diversity of training data, or that we need to curate algorithms towards inclusive networking, or that we put checks and balances on the computational networks in order to keep queer people safe. And while all of these are important safeguards, let's be clear that these are post-facto implementations that mitigate the effects of harm rather than diminishing the violence against the queer bodies, which I am proposing is structurally built into artificial intelligence platforms and practices. One of my favorite ways of understanding this is that a correction of how AI is deployed and what its intention in a community is perhaps as futile as trying to de-weaponize a gun after spreading it around in society. Right? So when we are thinking about queering AI and how these now AI deployments are going to be introduced into communities of knowledge production like Wikipedia, we perhaps need to think about new structures and foundational changes that we will need to integrate AI that does not treat the queer as dirty or in need of cleaning. And I have three speculative and material propositions today which help us break away from the clean AI, dirty queer narrative deadlock and demand the abandoning of some core technological practices of AI in order to serve the needs of queer life and safety. And these propositions are by no means exhaustive, but they kind of indicate the challenges that communities like Wikipedia will face in queering the platform. So my first proposition is to refuse the individuation of the node. So at the heart of digital computation is the construction of nodes in a network, right? So nodes do not have a linear comprehensive origin story that pre-exists the network intentions of circulation. In fact, in the Barabashi-Alberto model of understanding scale-free networks, we see that nodes do not have a value or an origin of their own, but that they accrue value through connecting with other nodes. In their preferential attachment theory, they argue that the more a node is connected in a network, the more likely it is to receive new links, right? And in social theory, this is often dubbed as the Matthew effect, or in common sense, it's called the rich get richer effect. Now, most AI work with this preferential attachment theory for their growth, establishing a positive feedback cycle between the node that is already in power and those who link back to it, which means that AI networks have a clear idea of independent and discrete and isolated nodes, which will be favored both in terms of amplification of their information value. Right? So scale-free networks, and Wikipedia is an example of a scale-free network, constantly judge some nodes as pure and some as contaminated based on their capacity to scale and circulate. Contemporary AI deployments thus treat certain nodes as nodes which need to be either dismissed or in fact quarantined and then cleaned. My first proposition for us tonight is to reject this as the only viable model of AI deployment. We need to start thinking about other ways when nodes are not isolated or treated as invaluable only through their circulation capacities. That by rejecting the node as something that is individual, by rejecting the idea that the node can be removed or controlled, we call for a more diffuse set of information that treats the community or the collective as a unit of knowledge production. Thus, the AI is not a cleansing agent that marks some nodes as dirty, but in fact a delegation agent that puts the decision-making back on the community that owns and produces this knowledge. My second proposition for us to think through. And again, as you will realize, this is drawing from some of the core values of Wikipedia itself. My second proposition for us is to, in fact, lean into fragmentation and omission. The algorithmic violence of detection depends upon the promise of intelligibility, right? Only that which can be fully known is considered to be clean. To an algorithm that is trained to detect queerness, all appearances without context can appear queer. The presumption that AI can and will know everything about us needs to be radically challenged. We have to understand that even as AI is presented as descriptive, it is a prescriptive model of the world. And in this, AI keeps on justifying its errors and problems by claiming that we do not have to make AI fairer and better decision-making processes need to be put into place. Instead, what we do is we put the queer nodes under extreme surveillance and demanding that they become more intelligible, produce more data, which will still only be filtered by the intentions of AI, which continue to be queer-phobic. And we now need to think about this new way in which we resist the demands of AI to make ourselves completely transparent. As a longtime student of Wikipedia communities, I think one of the strengths of Wikipedia knowledge production is to know that we will never know everything, that there will always be omission, there will always be fragments, there will always be knowledge which we cannot represent, not consume, and not describe. I think that is a queer strategy. Drawing inspiration from Zach Blas, who's one of my favorite artists, like he made this facial recognition mask. We have to lean into the practices of obfuscation and reticence, not demanding that all the users produce themselves to the demands of AI management, but asking AI systems to be accountable in their fragmented decision-making when faced with incomplete or flawed data sets. That we need to stop being apologetic for absence of information and instead see absence or silence as a queer strategy by which AI scrutiny can be revised and resisted. And my third proposition for us is to perhaps recognize that contamination is joyful. Of course, there is pathology in it, but there is also the sense of risk and frisson and vulnerability which needs to be celebrated. We also need to understand that we need to change the narratives of AI as clean, because the myth of innocence of AI is countered by multiple examples and experiences, right? So if you look at the circuits of media manipulation, information shaping, misinformation, targeted and automated attacks against queer people, profiling and discrimination, you can just produce a litany of the ways in which AI is not pure or clean, and that in fact it requires a whole range of governance system in order to control it. We know that AI, right, so both generic and generative, are guided by technological and political impulses that continue to skew them towards populist attitudes and approaches. And yet we keep on thinking of AI failures as mere errors which needs to be corrected, largely at the expense of the human. So instead, we need to perhaps admit and keep on insisting that AI is dirty. It is dirty in its very origins, both technological networking as well as in its social deployment. And that we refuse to delegate the responsibilities of cleanliness and management to these self-learning systems. Instead, we start producing narratives and highlight the unreliability and the shaky nature of AI and create new relationships where we do not measure one AI with another. Instead, we put human collectives as the measure of artificial intelligence. And when in conflict, we resist the weaponization of AI against the human, which generally takes the route of better data, more data, and we now instead start pulling out of the systems and find alternative modes of decision and meaning making. I think these are exciting challenges for the future of Wikipedia communities as they start deploying AI more in the systems. And given the huge central focus on community, collectivity and human capacity for meaning making, this perhaps looks precisely like the community that will be able to show the way forward for queering the internet to create kinships of queer solidarity that perhaps infect the digital futures with, a joyful possibility. So those were just my few reflections for today. I think it's a good time to perhaps take a pause, listen to how other people are feeling about it. If I'm not very clear about something, please feel free to ask questions and I can maybe explain a little bit more about where my research is coming from and why I'm presenting this to you. But I'll stop here and thank you very much for your patient listening.
Thank you very much, Nishant. It was a pleasure to hear you as always, and I think it was both insightful and maybe inspirational for the way to think of our own practices in a different way. I think in Wikimedia movement there is a lot of maybe even panic that our data is being used extensively in training language models, and corporations have little understanding of the global dynamics of communal work, of what gets covered or it doesn't. So there is kind of implicit fear that this will be abused both for commercial interests, but also not understood in a way that Wikimedians understand that there are gaps and they are especially prominent in some fields. With Wikipedia, maybe there is also a big generational gap. I think the early Wikipedians were aspirational to capture the whole human knowledge, and they saw this as a horizon that they could achieve. It was maybe not as indefinite as we see it now. It was something that had maybe a modernist idea of a single neutral perspective and possibility to map all the knowledge. Now that we discuss so many different types of experiences, so many different types of contexts and knowledge embedded in those contexts, we don't make those assumptions as easily. Maybe to return a little bit back to this notion of a kind of dirty and clean in technology, I was personally very enthusiastic about discussing how technology is not neutral, and for technologists to accept this, it was taking a lot of time, more often than not. And for them to accept that technology might be even dirty could be even more radical proposal. And it will remain dirty, at least as much as we are, if not worse. Can you see maybe good examples in where this is explicit, where it's discussed, and there is kind of positive movement in understanding how neutrality is no longer taken for granted, and maybe this filth and this problematic human dirt and mistakes and queerness can find space?
Thank you. I think that's a very helpful set of reflections following this small input. For me, as somebody who studies kind of more ontologies of digital computation networks, I am particularly fascinated by the framing of clean technologies, specifically because we know that in its very digital computation, technology is promiscuous, right? One of my favorite examples is, I don't know where, of course, people are coming in from all different countries. So please do this experiment only after checking if this is allowed in your country or not. But in large parts of the world, you will be allowed to install something called a packet sniffer on your machine. right? So it basically is a very harmless kind of a software which monitors and visualizes all the traffic that is going through your laptop at any given moment when it's connected to a network. Now, if you install a packet sniffer and then if you do absolutely nothing on your laptop, you will suddenly realize that even while you are not doing anything, your laptop seems to be talking to a whole bunch of other devices and continuously exchanging data. I mean, of course, a lot of this is very harmless, right? It's just updates that it is doing to different systems. It is pinging itself regularly to the central server, recognizing itself. It is perhaps transferring data from one point to the other because that is in the background running and so on. But it's also interesting to realize that if your laptop is basically part of a digital network which is trying to maximize resources and minimize redundancy, then somebody else who is using that network for a high computational process task might actually be routing information through your laptop. That sounds like a very, very technical and complex way of saying that if we were all connected in the same, let's say, Wi-Fi network, and I was downloading material on my computer which was objectionable, there is a chance that that material might in fact be passing through your network and through your laptops before it reaches mine, right? Digital networks bleed all the time. They are insanely promiscuous in the ways in which they connect different devices and contaminate each other with different kinds of informational traces. So if we know that at the very technological level, networks are so contaminated and promiscuous, why do we keep on reproducing them as clean is the question. And so that's like the one framing of the argument. And then the second one, as I already briefly kind of gestured, just look at the last 10 years of what AI and self-learning algorithms have done. And we have realized that they are extremely volatile, that they are in need of huge amounts of oversight and surveillance, that they intentionally and unintentionally produce conditions of harm and abuse, and we still keep on relying upon them as more robust and more predictable and more reliant than the human beings that we at least ontologically know, because we also are at least partially human, right? So I'm very fascinated by these narratives which are being presented of these technologies as infallible, technologies which are supposed to help with the cleaning, technologies which are supposed to help govern, because in all of that is the foundational idea that there is risk and then there is dirt. And then the risk and the dirt is always a human attribute. And that the technology with all of its sins is going to be accepted into this fold because it's the best way of efficient cleansing of these communities. So I really like some of the work that is coming up from queer art right now, because so much of it is not just about resisting and finding a better deployment of it, but actually saying, let's foundationally change what AI can do. Right? So if we want to work with biometrics, facial recognition, artificial intelligence systems, and questions of sexuality, let's not help improve those systems. Let's actually start recreating new forms of what is data, what is information, how will it be filtered, who's going to make meaning out of it. And again, I think that there are very few human-driven communities online which can actually take this challenge up. Right? Saying how do we produce information and meaning so that it is still guided by sources, citations, knowledge, facts, truths, experiences, and how do we then also continue to not just lean into this idea that all our information will be made better sense of by using an AI deployment. I mean, that was like basically where I was standing.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? I would prefer not to be the only one speaking with the keynote. By the way, we had few other submissions in the program that were AI related. We had a lightning talk, one workshop, one creative work that is presented, I think, as a video. So it's definitely something that captures a lot of imagination within Wikimedian movement. I think the recent work in testing how I was potentially substituting some of the work of the Wikimedians was also very entertaining for kind of in communal discussions.
I'll repeat what I said in the chat earlier, that there are certainly some of the points you were making about kind of having things in obscurity and clouding information with regards to AI that sound quite similar to some of the things I know will be coming up on Wednesday in some of our Gender in Wikidata sessions. In particular, the second lecture and the workshop with Ariela Rodriguez and Crystal Iragui and Alex Young, who we at the user group have been involved in some of the work that they have been doing around gender in Wikidata. Separately from that, I attended a session at the Mozilla Festival earlier this year, and it was about querying AI and both holding up a mirror to the ways in which training data for large language models are inherently gendered and cis-heteronormative, and so they make assumptions that effectively are offensive. And the people running that session are working on a project to kind of put together a more queer-friendly corpus that can be used to train large language models. Is that something that you know other instances of or have any thoughts about? I'd be interested in knowing what that brings to your mind.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So this is where I think our future research challenges are going to be. So it is incredible, especially for women, queer and trans people who have come and spoken out against the heteronormative and cishet presumptions of large dataset modeling. And we've seen that they've been punished and there has been backlash, both systemically and structurally, for people who have blown that whistle, right? So this entire idea that we need to produce better data sets, produce better forms of meaning making is something I completely empathize with. But when I start looking at the historical precedents of how, if all our efforts are at making technological implementation better, we are essentially buying into the idea that the ways in which the technologies are looking at the world is non-questionable. So my concern is that we cannot merely be the unpaid data activists who are improving these large language model sets or image sets in order for these AIs to become better, simply because the foundational principles of those AIs are problematic. One of the biggest joys of the COVID pandemic during my life was that I was part of this online distributed network called the Feminist Internet Research Network that is housed by the Association of Progressive Communication. And we had a fantastic question at hand. So it's a group of artists, activists, social scientists, data scientists, researchers from across the world, including with a particular focus on the majority worlds, where we were all asking, saying, what would a feminist internet look like? We are not talking about how to make internet safe for women and queer people, though that is of course a priority, especially when it comes to regulation, law enforcement, and so on. But we also really wanted to start thinking about would a feminist internet look different if the basic principles of feminist ideology and thought were in fact protocols and codes through which the internet can be produced? So let's not talk about how to keep people's anonymity protected after bringing them into an extreme surveillance environment like the internet. Let's actually say no, anonymity is a non-negotiable value which needs to be coded into digital platforms, right? So for me, querying AI and querying Wikipedia features of AI is necessarily a task of saying, what are the kind of queer values that we are saying need to be the foundational principles of AI development, rather than merely keeping people safe. So my favorite line has been that, trying to make fair AIs is really like de-weaponizing a gun. You are first producing a weapon which is intended for harm, and then you are trying to figure out how to de-weaponize it. And so I think a lot of our future challenges are going to be in this direction. So not to take away anything from the incredible labor that a lot of the queer and feminist collectives are doing in changing the data corpus and challenging the information and meaning making in it. But I think we need new ways of reconceptualizing what AI can be. And that's why I keep on finding myself being drawn to artists and speculative fiction and Afrofuturisms, like these creative possibilities that people are kind of bringing in to recognize that to imagine a queer AI is also to imagine a world building practice, right? The production of these queer AIs is going to imagine queer worlds in some ways. And that's something that I want to take with me.
Thank you very much.
There's a couple of questions in the chat. I'll read the first one from Penn. Any thoughts on whether the Wikimedia Foundation has a useful role in AI anti-queer bias and influencing it?
That's a very difficult question, and I wish I kind of knew enough about Wikimedia Foundation's policies and practices in order to have an informed opinion on it. So I will say, unfortunately, I don't think I'm the right person for it, but I read in that question something else. More than the Wikimedia Foundation's role, I think the strength that Wikipedia has as a volunteer-driven community is that it is perhaps one of the oldest digital communities which has figured out how to live with conflict and to recognize that conflict is a part of knowledge making, and is refusing to give the authority and the delegation of conflict resolution to artificial intelligence, machine learning, decision-making models, right? So I think, I don't know enough about Wikimedia itself, but from what I always say that I research a lot of Wikipedia, but actually I'm just a student of Wikipedia. I learn so much from how communities get organized and manage information and reality. And I think the strength is to keep on insisting that when faced with conflicts or crises or epistemological violences, the responsibility will never be that of an AI model to clean us and to tell us what is right. And how do communities keep on occupying that position of epistemic, I don't know, conflict is a nice word. It's a horrible word, but epistemic conflict sounds good, to stay with it instead of just resolving it. I think that's a direction that we should be perhaps amplifying in this direction, in this way.
It's the best conflict if you have to have a conflict. Okay, we have one more question. Maybe the person who made it wants to talk and present themselves.
Hi, do you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, hi. Hey, thanks for your talk. I really like the style of the talk as well, and all the art references. And I was thinking about images and aesthetics and AI, because I think a lot of the conversation, we can think about data and words and but I've been thinking a lot about AI images, for instance, and how they're used in like Blender, video games, you know, a lot of different ways that people are now you could type in like lesbian in California and then get an image, right? And so what's that image going to be? So I don't know. I'm just curious to hear like your general thoughts about like the reproduction of the aesthetics of queer culture by AI image generators. I haven't played around with this too much, but your talk made me think, oh, I kind of want to I would kind of want to type into an image generator different, you know, gender related terms and see what it reproduces. So yeah, any thoughts just kind of on that aspect of AI and maybe the connections between some of the Wikipedia stuff in your talk potentially? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. I think this is such a great question. My own work has been primarily around large language models, so I haven't dealt with a lot of images, though as you can possibly see from my background, I actually work with my research students a lot around what we call contaminating digital practices in image making, where we take up original art forms and then we keep on infecting it with cyberpunk, science fiction, and future elements into it. So this is actually Monet's water lilies as imagined in a cyberpunk universe where soil is no longer possible, right? And you kind of generate things through it. In a different conversation, I have talked about, and I think your question is so urgent because of that, we have to understand that the digital practices of meaning making is not just about questions of language and interpretation, but it is in fact a question of aesthetics. And in my earlier research work, I've said that the age of misinformation exists because we are in a condition of aesthetic warfare. It's not just the collapse of the meaning, but it's also the collapse of the ways in which we receive meaning, which is right now at stake. And historically, it has been a lot of fun to go to another queer theorist, well, not theorist, practitioner, Alan Turing, right? So a lot of people will be already familiar with Turing's fundamental, more common sense proposition. So Alan Turing is a gay data scientist. Well, there were no data scientists at that point. Let's say a computational engineer who during the Second World War in the UK was trying to kind of build a decoding machine or a decryption machine in order to crack the Nazi codes, in order to protect civilians and so on. But one of the most famous propositions that Alan Turing has made in this paper called The Imitation Game is that one day you will be in an online virtually mediated environment and you will be speaking to something and you will no longer be able to figure out if that thing is going to be human or not, right? And the more popular interpretation of this proposition by Alan Turing is that you will be fooled by a machine. So you kind of see these, every year there are these robotic competitions where people develop language bots and you are supposed to interact with them. And then if you can't figure out that you are talking to a bot, then that particular bot has passed the Turing test. From a feminist and queer perspective, in my last book, which is called Really Fake, we talked about how we might need to reread Alan Turing's proposition. Because many people forget that Turing's first proposition was not about whether we will be able to identify whether something is human or not. His first proposition was that when you talk to something online, you will not be able to figure out if it is a man or a woman, right? This blurring of roles, this idea that the digital aesthetic space can actually confuse some of the certainties that we enter these domains about identifying and fossilizing gender, sexuality, and so on and so forth. The reason I'm going through Alan Turing is because I think that when it comes to AI images, and especially generative AI images, we are, for the first time, experiencing a new kind of an existential crisis. Because the crisis is not that a machine will fool you, that a deep fake will manipulate you, that visual information will give you wrong cues. The crisis is that we have lost our capacity to identify the truth. right? So the crisis is not that the technology is fooling us. The crisis is that we no longer trust ourselves in identifying the truth value of information when it is presented to us. And when thinking about generative AIs, this is where the problems begin. Because if as functional human beings invested in information societies, we can no longer trust our own judgment of identifying whether something is human or not, something is true or not. And the digital aesthetics are necessarily making it more and more difficult to do that. The only thing that we will be able to trust in identifying and telling the truth is going to be artificial intelligence systems. Right? If you and I can no longer trust our own capacity to identify and interpret the truth, then you and I will have to admit that we are broken and that the only way to fix our brokenness is an AI system, which will give you an authoritative probability score saying that what you say is 91% more accurate and hence it must be true. So I'm kind of fascinated with this delegation of responsibility and agency to AI systems, and that's what a lot of these new AI image generators are doing. They're naturalizing the idea that you cannot trust yourself when it comes to identifying truth, and so you need verification scores and probability scores and somebody to verify that what you are seeing is in fact what you are seeing, which is why we've spoken about it in the book as well. We've reached a very strange space in AI deployment right now, where the measurement of an AI efficiency is another AI. So if you want to figure out if an artificial intelligence decision-making model is giving you the correct answers, you need to develop another artificial intelligence decision-making model, which will verify the first one and tell you whether it's working or not, right? So this interdependency of AI deployment is building a new kind of an ecosystem. Okay, that's a very long and rambling answer, but I hope it addresses some of the things you were talking about.
Yeah, I think when we start opening these kind of topics, there are not super short answers anyway. One thing that is maybe very related to aesthetics of Wikipedia, which hasn't changed so much over 2 decades of its existence, it's basically this metaphor of black type letters on a white surface, an idea of encyclopedic authority and the truth, rather than this diversity and complexity of positions. And depending on the scale and size and capacity on different language communities, there is also kind of aesthetical difference in how pages appear. Like in English Wikipedia, it's very undesirable to see gaps. Like seeing red links is something that many old editors would refuse. And they would think if there is no page behind, there shouldn't be a link that explicitly points to the gap. While on smaller Wikipedias, this is the most common thing, that majority of the links are actually red and they still need to be filled with content. And there is much more kind of humility with what has been covered and what not, and what is the world kind of oversight or indexing or whatever term you choose to use. And even more so with super tiny Wikipedias that are created primarily to preserve the language. So they don't even have aspirations to cover the basic articles of the most basic encyclopedias. They just start from preserving what is unique and essential for their culture, so that they have a medium in which this can be kept in a format that is kind of compatible to the encyclopedia. I don't know if there are more questions.
I think we're coming up to the point where we should take a break relatively soon anyway.
Yeah. I would hope to direct you to Telegram group, where we have kind of safe space to ask questions more. I will ask Nishant to make himself available, not now in this late hour, but maybe check it out tomorrow or the day after when he has some time, if there are other people interested in other questions, and maybe we can continue this during the conference.
For sure. And I'm in the Telegram group and I will be going to sleep soon. So I'm not going to be available for the next 8 to 10 hours. But I'm also very easy to find both on Twitter and Instagram. My handles lately on time. I would love to have these conversations going on. As it was mentioned in the beginning, I've just moved to Hong Kong and I'm setting up something called the new Digital Narrative Studio. And some of these conversations about how do we tell the stories of AI and of human beings, of questions of justice, of questions of queer futures, is like a essential part of the Digital Narrative Studio. So for people who are interested in having these conversations, particularly in the political context of Hong Kong, and the ways in which the geography is transforming, please feel free to reach out, and I would love to share and learn from everyone. And thank you so much for inviting me to hold this space. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Vic, you maybe want to say something for Spanish speakers, or?
Yeah, may I tell how we continue a little bit? Do you find it okay?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Okay. Vamos a ahora tomarnos una pausa, volvemos a las 10:45 para tener las charlas que son charlas relámpago, que van a ser en diferentes grupos o plataformas. No se preocupen porque llegado el momento les vamos a acercar los enlaces para poder participar. Así que por ahora una pausa de descanso, nos vemos a las 10:45. 10:45, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, 45 definitely.
So a half-hour break starting now.
Take some rest.
Mm-hmm.
New account is being signed in another account.
Hola, Lucía. Lucía, tenemos una pausa hasta, yo no sé cuándo hora es en allá, hasta 10 y tres cuartos, 10:45.
Okay. Yes. I'm gonna be the talker. So.
Vale.
So we are back after the break. Pardon. And for those who used Zoom so far, now we are going to diversify our technology also a bit. We will have two different tracks. One track with lightning talks will be here in a Zoom, and one will be following the kind of more interactive presentation and Q&A on Big Blue Button. If you used Big Blue Button before, then you probably know what it is. It's a web-based system for video conferencing that is open source and that is used primarily in education. We are using this one thanks to support from the Constant VZW, the feminist server from this feminist art group from Brussels. And we will be sharing a link with you, which is basically now in the Zoom chat here. And we will have both Josh and me helping facilitate this, and this room on Zoom will be taken over by, I hope, Owen and Vic. Owen and Vic, are you back?
Yeah, we are back. I just have a question.
Of course.
That we have right now we are moving into 4 separate rooms, or we're moving into 2? And who is starting talking where? Okay. Who is where?
Split in 2 and 2 in each room.
Great.
So it's not too much fragmentation, but it is diversification.
Okay.
That does mean, Z, you need to tell Lauren how to get to BBB, I think.
I've sent the link here. I'm sending it again in the chat. And you just need to click and enter in a browser that's ideally Chrome-based. It doesn't have to be Chrome. It can be Chromium, Opera, or any of the derivative browsers. It doesn't work as amazing with Mozilla, unfortunately, and it works terribly from what I've heard in Microsoft browsers, if those still exist, and stuff like this.
So to be sure, we have Lauren and Yelena in BBB. And people who stay here will be hearing Lucia and Dorothy, isn't it?
Yes.
Great.
And we will keep running in Telegram if we need to cross mention each other, but yeah, have a wonderful session, and please direct any people who come for this reason to the session to Big Blue Button.
Can I ask one question?
Yep.
Do you have any advice for speakers about working with the translators?
We were just going to come to that. So
okay.
You should have sort of here-ish a little globe icon with interpretation. You should set that to the language you are speaking in and that you want to hear in. And then Z, your microphone is live. And then so if you're speaking in English and Lucia is listening in Spanish, then while you talk, an interpreter will be speaking over you and Lucia will hear the interpreter instead of you. And Lucia, if you want to speak in Spanish, you need to set your language to Spanish. If you prefer to speak in English, you set your language to English. Anyone who's feeling very very optimistic and excited can listen to the original audio in whatever language that is on the same menu. But it's much easier if you don't. Vic, I'll pass over to you.
Yeah, I will say the same in Spanish just in case to make like a second refuerzo, I would say. But before that, please remember to speak slow. Interpreters are human and they are working, and it would be a really nice from our side to be just as slowly as possible. Voy a comentarles en español por las dudas que este contenido se haya perdido, que es importante, que es que si ustedes hacen clic en el globito que dice interpretación en la barra inferior de Zoom, van a ver que aparecen dos opciones, inglés o español. Si ustedes están queriendo escuchar en inglés, hacen clic en inglés, si no, hacen clic en español, y si están hablando en español en la sesión, por favor hagan clic en español para que pueda funcionar el sistema de interpretación.
And just a reminder that all of this conference is governed by our friendly space policy, which is here in chat. Lucia.
Ok. Voy a preferir hablar en español. Voy a arrancar aclarando eso. Gracias, Vic, por la sugerencia de hablar despacio, porque suelo hablar bastante acelerado. Así que, bueno, mis compañeras me van a estar ayudando con la presentación. Yo voy a estar hablando de la comunicación, o cómo construir comunicación institucional que tenga que ver, que tenga en cuenta a la agenda LGTB. Me presento por las dudas nuevamente. Mi nombre es Lucia Medina y trabajo como responsable de comunicación de Wikimedia Argentina.
Dame un segundo, Lu, por favor, que pueda confirmar que podemos presentar tus diapositivas. Un segundo.
Si no, no hay problema, yo la puedo presentar también de acá.
We are just having some little issues with slides.
Tenemos dos traducciones en inglés aquí. Creo que Francesc, creo que debes estar en BBB y Flo aquí. ¿Es verdad, Vic?
You're right.
Lo siento, Francesc. ¿Se puede hablar con Z en BBB? El link es en chat. Bueno.
Bien. Un segundo más. Ok, so I will just send, perdón, vuelvo al español. Voy a mandar por aquí la presentación de Lucía en inglés para las personas que quieran seguir ese contenido en inglés. Lo van a recibir en el chat en este momento. Ahí tienen la presentación traducida al inglés. Y por otro lado, les voy a compartir también la presentación en español, por las dudas que la quieran tener a disposición. Bien. Un segundo. Lucía, ¿podrías presentar vos? Perdón que te moleste.
Dale, sí, no hay problema. No hay problema. Yo ahí, entonces aguarden un segundo. Que me parece, Vic, que me tienen que autorizar porque me dice compartir deshabilitado, así que me tenés que habilitar a que yo pueda compartir.
Ok, Owen, can you make her co-host? Yeah, only co-host, and I don't know why I'm not a co-host right now. Something happened. Or maybe there are too many co-hosts because I cannot do it myself. So maybe you can remove my co-host and give it to Lucia.
Lucia is co-host now.
Ok, ¿están viendo la presentación?
Sí, Lu, se ve bien.
Ok, bueno, como dije anteriormente, voy a hablar sobre cómo construir una comunicación institucional que tenga en cuenta la agenda LGTB en el ámbito de Wikimedia Argentina. Yo entré hace más de un año a este puesto, así que había una decisión que ya estaba tomada y me parece que es bueno remarcarla, que es esto, que Wikimedia Argentina decidió enfocarse en reducir la brecha de géneros, no solo en mujeres, sino también en la comunidad LGTB. Y esto, al ser una decisión, tuvo sus consecuencias o tuvo también hubo que tomar también decisiones en torno a la comunicación, ¿sí? O sea, este cambio de agenda, no solo de actividades, también tuvo huellas en esta comunicación. Entonces, esta comunicación tenía que empezar a escuchar a esta comunidad que estaba ahí presente y hablarle no solamente a las personas que eran wikimedistas, sino empezar a crear un espacio amigable y de escucha para la comunidad LGTB que estaba ahí presente. Entonces, para eso, cómo lo fuimos pensando, siempre es válido recalcar que es una agenda en construcción, porque hay un ida y vuelta con estas comunidades, y lo que nos propusimos es crear una agenda específica para esta comunidad, y eso incluía desde pensar cursos virtuales en relación a la clave de género que se encuentra en Wikipedia, y empezar a que eso también se vea no solo en las palabras que elegimos, sino en las imágenes, en las visuales que decidimos. En relación a eso, entonces estoy mostrando ejemplos de comunicación que tienen que ver, por ejemplo, con las efemérides o con las piezas de comunicación que pensamos para esta comunidad, porque se trataba también no solo de pensar las efemérides o la agenda temática, las fechas de interés de la comunidad, sino también empezar a elegir las palabras, ¿no?, a las cuales nos dirigíamos. A veces son cambios muy sutiles, por ejemplo, una decisión es hablar, en lugar de decir género, hablar en plural, decir géneros, y también a la hora de utilizar la sigla, entendemos que para nuestra región hace más sentido utilizar LGBT+, que tiene que ver con nuestra comunidad travesti trans, que resuena mucho más y que significa mucho más a las personas a las que le estamos hablando. Entendimos que había que habilitar un espacio justamente amigable y una escucha activa para esta comunidad, y que era necesario crear redes. O sea, las redes son condición necesaria para que la comunicación pueda llegar y que pueda hablarle de sus necesidades, de sus intereses, de cómo se ven, se sienten representados, representadas, representades. Y bueno, era necesario generar este espacio y esta escucha activa a través de tal vez encuestas o leyendo los comentarios o el feedback que nos daban en las actividades. Entonces, reitero, nos preguntamos cuáles son no solamente las efemérides significativas para la comunidad en términos locales, sino cómo estaban siendo representadas visualmente sus identidades. Van a ver que nuestras gráficas, la mayoría está constituida por collage, es una decisión previa a mi ingreso a esto, pero de la cual, la verdad, estoy muy orgullosa, me gusta mucho, porque también esta idea de collage da la idea de diversidad y de integrar realidades. Todas nuestras imágenes, nuestros flyers, nuestras piezas gráficas están liberadas en Commons, y a su vez están construidas con imágenes que sacamos o que podemos utilizar desde Commons. Por eso también es la necesidad y el recordatorio permanente de también que en Commons estén representadas estas comunidades, para poder a su vez utilizarlos como recursos comunicativos. Por eso pensamos que hay que tener en cuenta no solo la agenda de las efemérides, no solamente las palabras que usamos, sino también pensar estos contenidos enfocados, elegir las fechas temáticas, elegir el lenguaje para que nuestros mensajes no resuenen con fobias sociales a la comunidad. Y es por esto que se trata de entender que todo comunica, no solamente las palabras, sino también las imágenes y entender que no podemos hablar de las comunidades sin las comunidades. Gracias por escuchar.
Bueno, muchas gracias, Lucía, por tu presentación. Lucía es parte del equipo de Wikimedia Argentina, se dedica al área de comunicación de Wikimedia Argentina y nos estuvo compartiendo la experiencia de cómo tener en cuenta a la comunidad LGBT a la hora de armar una agenda de comunicación desde los capítulos. Ahora vamos a pasar la palabra a la siguiente persona que presenta. Gracias, Lu, por tu tiempo y tus palabras. Y la siguiente persona que presenta, entiendo que es Dorothy. ¿Así es así? Bien. Owen, can you move co-host to Dorothy, please?
Yes, though you just said that on the Spanish channel, so I didn't hear you properly.
Oh, sorry.
Dorothy, over to you. I will allow you to introduce yourself because I forgot to ask you how I should do so.
Yeah. And it looks like I just need the screen share capability there with the co-host status.
Do let me quickly check.
Somehow I am co-host, but yet it still says.
You should be able to share now.
Oh, okay, perfect. All right, and I realize the next session starts in 8 minutes, so I'm going to try to cut some of my talk, but this is also a new kind of idea for me to explore, so I should be developing more talks and texts about this in the future. All right, so I'm Dorothy, and I'm a bisexual woman in California, and I'm excited to talk to you in a lightning talk. I was going to write out my talk, but I ran out of time. So this is more of a traditional, like on the fly kind of talk. All right, so let me share my screen here. So I changed the title of my talk, but it's the same idea. Okay. So I've been a Wikipedian since around 2012, and I've noticed a lot of things about the community in that time. And something that I've always been very concerned about is all of the work that we do and how that we can understand the value that we're creating. So in this talk, I want to talk about creating better ways of understanding the impact of the work of people on Wikimedia platforms and how it fits into what I'm going to call the global technology stack. And what I mean by that is, how does Wikipedia create value for other platforms, for other technologies? And how can we understand the value that we're producing by doing all of this amazing work, editing articles, taking photos, uploading data, and why? Because I believe that by understanding our impact, or that understanding our impact can help us advocate for the community, get resources, and share in credit and the value that we're creating. So my main point is for this is that Wikipedians create real value for corporate AI. And this was talked about in the keynote today, and it's a hot topic, but I'm not just talking about it because it's a hot topic. I'm talking about it because I care about this connection between the value that we're producing and how what we're producing is being used. Sorry for the translators on that. Some people in the community care about this, some don't. We may not have a good sense of what the public opinion of different Wikipedia communities is on AI, but the community is already using a lot of AI itself. But I'm talking about how data, images, information from Wikipedia is used by things like ChatGPT. AI presents many challenges to training data being credited. When AI companies make the sources of their training data closed from public understanding, the sources go unacknowledged. Okay, so I'm going to cut a few of my slides here. So one thing that we do know is, unfortunately, efforts to reduce homophobia on Wikimedia platforms are unwanted by many actors. And why am I bringing this up? Because all of the hard things that we experience by doing work, editing information about gender on Wikipedia, it is work, and it can be a lot to bear. So Dr. Lisa Nakamura talks about the unpaid labor of community managers and moderators on Twitter, whose efforts to moderate misogyny and sexism online are often unwanted, punished, and viewed as censorship, uncivil behavior, or themselves forms of sexism. I'm bringing this up because we know, people in Wikimedia LGBT know that this work is very hard and it takes a lot of work. We also know that there's a present demand for a lot of quality AI training data. Public training and testing data sets are typically created from readily available sources, such as web scrapes, forums, and Wikipedia, or through crowdsourcing. However, these sources often suffer from issues such as bias, poor distribution, low quality. I'm not going to read this whole slide because we don't have time, but I have some other quotes here that also talk about how Wikipedia is used heavily in training data, and also that there is an increasing demand for quality training data. So I'm kind of connecting some dots here, but what I'm saying is that we can think about the work that we're doing, editing topics on gender in Wikipedia, in terms of the value that it's producing for AI. And there are many different examples of work that talks about this, but I think that it's something that we should talk about more. So what I'd like to do, I think I just have 1 minute, but just end with some questions. So does it matter?
You can stay
to
a
you?
little longer if you would like.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to pose these questions. And if anyone wants to try to answer for yourself, that would be great. So does it matter to you how Wikipedia is used? And if people are making money off it? Do you think Wikipedia editors deserve credit for the work they do to improve AI technology? The other ways of understanding Wiki LGBT's value for AI. Anyone want to answer how you're thinking about these things? And just thank you all for coming to this lightning talk.
Thank you, Dorothy. If anyone wants to give their thoughts on that, you can do so for a moment. And Natasha, you should have privileges to share your screen when you're ready to start.
Okay.
Okay, I think you're good to start. It seems like we have a quiet audience today.
Okay. So do I have to admit somebody?
No, don't do admissions. I will do admissions.
Okay. Am I live now or not?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I will switch my camera on. So hello, everybody. I'm Natasha Roth, Hero Specs on the projects. And I'm here to propose to do a bit of screening and gather ideas for the Wiki Loves Pride 2023. I would like your community inputs from all the various regions where you come from to have an idea to put themes, subjects and ideas from translation and areas where we should be focusing on the project. And I share my screen to show you where the project is. So actually, Wiki Loves Pride was a page that existed on Meta. Are you seeing something now or not?
It is just loading. We're still seeing black.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure it is working.
Okay.
I see black myself as well.
I don't seem to be able to share. Why? Okay. Well, maybe Owen, can you share? And I send you the link in the chat. Let's do it that way because I don't need to. Yeah. So it's a bit awkward. I'm trying to. Can you still hear me because I can't see you anymore?
Yes, we can still hear you.
I've lost Zoom trying to share my. Oh, here we are. So this is the first. It's a Wiki Loves Pride page, which has been existing for quite a long time, but nobody was active on it. And Les Sans Pages and the LGBT project on the Francophone decided to try and make a more international event out of it and have LGBT groups and projects and editatons work together. I'll try again just once. But
no, that is still showing black. Is it this year's Wiki Loves Pride page or the main Wiki Loves Pride page?
It's the main Wiki Loves Pride page, and now I've lost my Zoom. Here we are. It's not working. I'll abandon. If you can just show up the slide,
I will do that,
and people can follow.
Okay.
So this is a page. We thought it was a brilliant page, and that following all the attacks on LGBT contributors and projects, we thought that it might be a good idea to be out and proud about the things we do, and to have some initiative also, which is gathering around content and contribution and making ourselves visible and taking our place in the community. So we started, I think it was 2021, to do small events, and now we have the 2023 event coming up. We have held 2 sessions in January and February, and everybody is welcome to join the next sessions. We just thought we'd be leaving a bit of place for querying Wikipedia and starting again at the end of the month. And the idea is to start in June and to have something running up to the end of December, because in different countries and in different regions of the world, there are different days of celebration of Wiki Loves Pride, and there are also other kinds of celebrations like the International Day for Trans Identity, the Bisexual Days, and everything. And we thought it would be nicer if everybody could contribute in the way they want, with a small or little events, and if we could all do that together and share the results. So we have already had one event actually on the 29th of April in Liège in Belgium, and that was lesbians in concentration camp along with Queer Code. And this was meant as a community building event, like we started doing an editathon and a workshop, and these people in Liège are going to continue. They're a group of 5 or 6 people motivated to continue. There was not a big result in terms of articles created. What is more important is a sense of a community building and starting to get your fingers into it and building a community. So as you see, several people and groups have already put up some things that they want to do. The only thing is in Geneva, it will not happen because it will be in Paris because we didn't have any answer from the Pride events in Geneva. They were too late in answering, so there was something that came up in Paris. So we'll be in Paris instead. But the Francophone community is going to have something on the 10th of June for Wiki Loves Pride in France. And
Natasha, can you please be slightly slower for the translation?
yes,
Thank you.
sorry, I will try to speak slower. So is there anything I need to repeat for the translation? So you can.
Yeah, I think you're doing well and you can continue. Just try to a little bit slower. That will be fine.
Okay, thank you. So you can just put up your event here. You don't need to ask for permission. You can also participate in the next meetings. We don't have a date for that. If you want more information, you can write to me. I will put my address in the page. Here we are. You can write there to have an idea about the meetings. And now what I'm going to do is to share a pad where you can jot down ideas of the areas where you think it would be good contributing. And please put things from your own languages, not always from English, because we need to translate also from English into other languages. And I'm looking for the pad. Just a second.
If you send me the link, I can screen share the pad.
Yeah. Here it is. It's just a small pad, nothing dramatic about it, but I would love inputs from everybody.
I don't know where you have shared that link.
I have shared in the meeting chat.
Maybe it's going to the main meeting chat, not to this one.
Okay, so everyone in meeting, here we are. Here is the pad.
Got it.
First of all, I hope everybody can access it. I will have to look if it's public.
It works for me.
Yeah, it is public.
I'm sharing now.
Okay, so the idea would be to gather ideas for contribution. So first of all, what are the events and projects in your own language or own project that you know of that are tackling on LGBT projects? You can put that in the first question. And then are there articles that you think that would be vital to translate or to create? And then just jot down as many ideas as you can. Should it be history LGBT, culture LGBT? Do we need more themes on? I would personally say that we need more themes on bisexuality, history of bisexuality. We need more things on masculine trans people, because a lot of the articles that are done concern trans women. We also need to look into intersexuality and look that the laws in each country concerning LGBT rights are up to date, and also contribute about our history in our various countries. Yes, okay, thank you. I'm seeing things emerge. If you can put the links too when there's a link in another language. And also, if you have made an article that you are proud of, I would suggest that you do it, that you put it too. Native and Two Spirits, yes, great. Yeah, trans-mask people, yes. Good. You can put specific articles to be translated. See also the talk at, yes, okay. The person who put Pi del Mais in Wikipedia Proyecto, maybe would be good to have a link.
I can add that link in a second. It is there's a talk, as I put in the pad, there is a talk at 16:25 UTC on
Yeah,
Sunday.
I will be
about
following.
the
Yes, okay, great. Sorry for interrupting. So what would be the resource LGBT biographies?
as I think probably Vic is currently typing. Vic and I and some people from Art and Feminism and two people we invited to add essays to the guide are launching an English version of a document that Wikimedia Argentina published last year. The English version will be launching on Wednesday in our session at 14:30 UTC.
Is that so? That is a kind of guide.
Yes.
It is a kind of guide. We already have it translated into English after some months of work. We will present this on Wednesday, and it's also translated into Portuguese, and it's available to be translated to many other languages as you want.
So it's a guide to contribute, or it's a guide about the representation?
Kind of
more
both.
About, yeah, kind of both. Yeah.
Okay. This is
Nat, next on my list for that is to talk to you and Wikimedia France, Wikimedia Suisse, Wikimedia Belgium, and Art and Feminism to talk about translating it into French.
So that's a great idea. I would be in for translating into French if I have time. I have to see the length of the document. It's nice that you put it in there.
We can chat about that later.
Yeah, but here I would like us to focus more on content. And I see everybody has put Wikipedia, maybe think also Wikidata and Commons too. And put the articles that you are proud of, just jot ideas. And then it will give me ideas to organize maybe online events, because we said we would be doing at least one. We have not organized everything regarding finances. I think Owen and I will work on that afterwards, because it had no sense to, we didn't have time in March, April and May because of querying, and the month of March is always very heavy. So we'll get something sorted out with Owen. But here it's more content related, because this will be what the world is going to read on our projects, on open source projects, the Wikipedia articles. So just put as many ideas, the things you are proud of, the things that you think are vital for your country, if you can identify that. For example, if there's an article in your country or a theme on your country that you would like translated in as many languages as possible, put it there. Oh, I see a lot of input from Spain. Thank you.
That is why they have a talk on Sunday. They have been doing a lot of very good work on the Spanish language Wikipedia over the last year.
Oh, I have trouble hearing.
Was I muffled? did I come through okay to Dorothy, Vic, Andres? Okay. Can you hear me okay, Nat? Natasha, tu peux m'entendre? I think Natasha might have frozen. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button.
Never mind. Can everybody still hear me? Oh yes, articles that you are proud
Yes.
of. Yes, I need to put also articles in there. There was the history of the representation of AIDS. I think that's also important. I had started to translate it in French, but it's not finished.
I have a list on the English Wikipedia that I've been putting together as a part of Wiki Project AIDS of English language articles that are missing or need improvement. And perhaps I should work with some people to do the same across other languages. We could coordinate something on Meta.
Yeah. So on Meta, I'm going to set up a international working list, which is a bit like that, like the one that we use for lesbians during the Holocaust. And actually, we are also going to use that one because it's there are still things that need to be done on that list. And the Editaton in Liège showed that there's still work to be done concerning the history of lesbians during the Holocaust. Les trans, yes. I would also like to put something in there about the archaeology of trans identity. It's a very interesting historical subject, and historical subjects are easier to work on because there's not so much pressure. Yes, Owen?
On the archaeology of trans identities, one of the people that will be joining us on Wednesday is Dr. Kit Hyam, who recently published a book on called Before We Were Trans. And in conversation with our session launching that guide is Norena Shopland, a queer historian from Wales, who also works on generally on minoritized histories, but particularly queer minoritized histories. And she also has a book about respectfully writing about queer, trans, and gender nonconforming people and people of those experiences through history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I see we have a lot about Spanish and maybe Latin America. Is there anybody from Asia here, or from Russia, from Africa that would?
We have quite a lot of attendees from Africa. We have very few from Asia and Russia, I'm afraid. Also, it's a poor time of the day for a lot of Asia.
Yeah. I'm not on the pad now because I've put full screen. Can somebody jot down archaeology of trans identity? And before we were trans, I have actually a few books. I have Before We Were Trans. I also have the Susan Streichner book. Yeah, I have the Before We Were Trans. And there's also this book. I don't know if you can see me. Before Trans, 3 gender stories from 19th century. Can you see it? Which is from
Yes.
Rachel Mesh. So it's about Jane.
Please spell the names.
So Rachel Mesh, M-E-S-C-H.
I have added that to the pad.
And it's before trans. It's not before we were trans. And it speaks about figures. So it's Rachilde, Jane de la Foi, masculinity for God and country, and Marc de Montifaux. Jane de la Foi, yeah, I'll be correcting the pad afterwards, yeah. So this would be maybe to work on having, we have 6 months, so maybe we could try to choose one emblematic article and obtain a quality label on all languages. Because then when we have a quality label, it appears on the first page of our Wikipedia projects. Yes. What about Wikidata? Is there anybody in for?
There is a project around gender on Wikidata who are talking, I think tomorrow. I have just opened the schedule to translate something, so I can't check right now. Andre, could you let me know when the sessions on gender in Wikidata are with Daniele Metilli and Ariel and Crystal and Alex?
Yes, and I will try to attend the session to gather ideas.
It will be 14:30 UTC.
And that's on Sunday?
Yeah, no, Wednesday.
On Wednesday, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And also, I have discovered how to put a banner up on the French Wikipedia. We did so for Francophone African female writers. And so I will be doing the same probably in September or October on the Francophone Wikipedia. And I think it would be great if other projects, we could have a banner all at the same time, inviting people to contribute on LGBT content. So maybe if you are interested in that, you can also put your pseudo in the pad if you want. And if we are going to do an online event, what is the type of event you would like to attend? Would it be a more technical event, or would it be an editathon, or speaking about the problems we experience? That's down there at the bottom of the pad. Oh, beautiful cat.
Needy cat.
Oh, just a second, I'll get mine. Come here, darling. Ah, here we are. Here we are.
Another beautiful cat.
Yeah.
Other people with cats, you should bring your cat to the videos if you like.
Natasha, do you know about the Wiki 99 project?
No. If you can jot that down.
That's a cool one. I put it on the. Yeah, I put it in the second section. I think it's in there somewhere. Or it's up a little bit. Wiki 99.
Okay.
On line 23. Some editors have come together to create a list of 99 articles that are important on any given topic. So there's now a Wiki 99 for LGBT, and there's a really great list there of some important articles that needs to be maintained and developed across language Wikipedias. And I definitely recommend looking at that one.
Oh yes, that's also what I was thinking of. Yeah, great, thank you. And is it does it have a fair representation geographically?
Imperfect, but not terrible.
Okay, everything is imperfect. So then what we could do is try to bringing subjects to bring it to an absolute perfection. Yes, so how much time do we have left, Owen?
Just over 10 minutes.
Okay,
Have
so
it until 50.
are there any questions? Do you have any, does anybody have any question or remarks or suggestions to make?
I do want to say that I do believe that we started Wiki Loves Pride in 2014. I was on that original organizing group, and it was definitely a big production. Jason Moore in Portland. There was a node in India. There was a New York event. There was so much photography at some pride parades all over, and just a lot of articles that were uploaded. And it's so interesting to me that these events just will pop up now. Like there's not necessarily a central organizer, pulling it all together. It's really kind of decentralized. But it's working well that way. Yeah. So that's very exciting. Yeah.
I'm really glad to meet then one of the organizers of the 2014 initiative. That's really nice. That's it's also the flexibility on our Wikimedian projects that if we are tired, we can stop a bit or pull back a bit, and then if we document what we are doing, and because this was documented, I found it, then we open a door for people in the future to continue when we are tired, or to enhance or to bring up new ideas. That's nice. Yeah, well, I hope you will be participating then this year. It's also possible to participate as an individual. I think I will be setting up a fountain tool, and so we can jot in our articles in there if we want. It's really something possible too. And are there groups that we should contact and that are not there already? So we do have on the page many people, but are there people missing there? Are there groups, language groups missing?
I think this conference has a lot of English and Spanish speakers, a few French and German speakers. There's a reasonable number of people attending from Nigeria and Ghana in particular, but also other parts of Africa. So if any of our African participants want to say anything, please do feel free, or just add to the pad. There aren't so many Portuguese participants, apart from Andre as Portuguese speaking, here today, I don't think. And there are a few from other parts of Europe and Africa.
Yes, Africa is with Les 100 Pages. We have African groups. And I know for our last series of events, one of them said they would not do something with us publicly because of our code of conduct, which specified that we wanted inclusivity for LGBT people, and because in their country it was illegal, they were afraid. So we did arrange for them to make an event without a clear connection to us and also finance it. But so this is also possible.
That is also the case here today, with at least one group attending as a node, sort of at arm's length from us, with some funding from the conference budget. That's definitely a thing we can do. I think you do that more successfully with Les Sans Pages than we have done so far as Wikimedia LGBT+, but we're getting there.
Oh, we haven't. We don't do everything very successfully too. With me, it's yes. So this is why I'm putting up a pad there, because nobody will know who is writing. Huh? I will just copy and put the list up somewhere under my name, a very official name, Natasha LSP, and not my volunteer one. So every subject can be mentioned there, and of course you can feel free to email me if you would like, if you have any ideas that you would like to bring forth during these 6 months, or to ON2. I'm putting you in the loop, or to John Samuel.
The user group rather than just me, but
yeah,
yes,
the user group. And I hope that during these 6 months, we will be able to tell the world through our Wikimedia project the history and the beauty of LGBT people, initiatives, culture, and history, and counter a bit of that extreme fascism that is coming up everywhere in the world. That is the idea. My daughter is bringing home a lot of young people who are going through transition phases, and they have been reading the Wikipedia articles and told us how important it is that they find the information on Wikipedia, because it's usually Wikipedia is not a forbidden space for them, and they can look it up and they can look up at the information. So whatever history, culture, information we can put on there is really badly needed in all languages. I think I'm ready to wrap up if everybody wants to add something else.
I think so. I was just going to expand on what you just said. So one of the topics I maintain some is there's a set of graphs on Commons for where gender self-determination is allowed by law, and where, such as here in the United Kingdom, where trans identities are medicalized. And I noticed, one of the members of the Wikimedia LGBT user group recently put together some Telegram channels that follow queer-related discussions, article creations, and deletion nominations across several Wikipedias. And I noticed that I think it was Chinese, but it might have been Japanese Wikipedia is currently discussing whether Japanese Wikipedia is currently discussing whether their equivalent of that article, gender self-identification, should be deleted, or to have significant quantities of information removed from their Japanese context, because it is politically controversial there right now. And they're in a similar state to here in the United Kingdom, where the government is actively hostile to trans and queer identities. And so the political climate is more generally so as well.
Sad. Yes.
On the plus side, one of the things I like about maintaining those graphs is I'm generally adding new countries. I have never yet had to remove a country from those maps.
That's good to know. And it would be nice to know if they are being used in every language too. Maybe you can jot that down in the pad, make sure that these graphs are added in all possible Wikipedias, because I didn't know you were maintaining those. This is why I wanted to do a session. I'm not going to, yes, Flavia, I see your question in the chat. The idea is just to jot down any article you are proud of, any historical article that you think would be good to be translated either in Portuguese or from Portuguese, and also identify maybe where is the main point of work that you have to do on your home wiki. Like I know on the Francophone wiki, we have to do more work on convention of styles. We have to do, so you can just put them down there because I will set up an international list, and I would like input from as many countries as possible so that we do not only do English-centered material. I would like us to translate from other countries. Actually, I have been taking Russian lessons to translate from the Russian Wikipedia too. So I'll be adding a few of mine afterwards, and I think that's it. I'm finished on my part. I hope I have answered, Flavia.
I think so. We have about 2 minutes left now before, let me read the schedule, before we have a 5-minute break.
So I propose to you that we all expand and do a bit of of movement and coffee before we move off to the other one. And, sort of like this. And and thank you very much for letting me have that impromptu talk. And thank you everybody attending and who contributed to this document. I'm staying on anyway, so do I just stay here or?
Yes, here is, so there will be one Zoom room for each of the 3 days of this conference. So there is one room for today. There will be future rooms set up for Sunday and Wednesday. The next session will be in this room. It is a panel with Belén de Grossi and Milagro Mariona. The panel will be in Spanish. The English title is Alliances Between the Wikimedia Movement and Independent Media.
And I would like to present you the new plush. She's willing to say goodbye to you. This is my little plush. How do you say plush?
Yeah, plushie.
She's plushy and she's from Lissampage with my previous pseudo because I had to change pseudo because I was attacked. And this is her daughter. She's called Octopedia. She's a witch and an octopus, and she has a Twitter account. We have lost the the key to the Twitter account. So this is
I
our.
see the one you just dropped appears to be in bisexual colors.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm bisexual, non-binary, bisexual, whatever, however that can intersect. Actually gender fluid. And yes, it's a bisexual cat with a witch hat with my previous pseudo, and she's traveling the world. Here we are. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, Natasha.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
And we have now a 5-minute break before the panel discussion with Belén and Milagro. We will be resuming at 55 minutes past the hour in most time zones.
Hola Belén, ¿me escuchás?
Belén, creo que se
Hola,
debe.
sí,
Ah, Belén, ¿cómo estás? Acá.
Milagros soy, para que ya cambio el nombre, que
Ah, dale,
entramos,
no pasa nada.
yo por
Yo
eso no me da por aludido.
prendo la cámara así ves con quién hablas. ¿Cómo estás? Soy Maju de Wikimedia Argentina. Me decía, bueno, dame un segundito que leo el mensaje, que parecía como que no estabas conectada al audio, pero te escucho bien, así que.
No, es bien ahora, pero
Ah, perfecto.
se debe cambiar la canal por la audio. Al momento estamos en inglés y hay
Ah, ok.
un cosa allí con
Sí.
globo y
Ujú.
se debe cambiarlo en español.
Bien, Milagro, ¿se refiere al subtitulado? ¿Sabes cómo es eso?
Sí,
Ah, perfecto. Que tenés que elegir, o sea, el idioma en el que vas a ser traducida, ¿no? Si lo estoy
Claro.
escuchando bien.
Entonces lo que tenés que hacer es entrar a interpretación, haces clic en interpretación y haces clic en español, porque vas a estar hablando en español para que el
ok.
sistema de interpretación funcione.
Gracias, Vic.
Ok.
Tengo español, pero solamente un poco.
No, está
Fue
muy bien tu español.
13 años después que he aprendido español.
No,
No,
está muy bien.
30, no 13.
Wow. Ok, entonces, it's okay. Do you see that Milagro has chosen the right option?
I can't see that.
Ah,
It's,
Okay. We will see that when she starts talking at the panel, but don't worry, it will be fine.
ok.
Ok.
Gracias, Milagro.
No, a ustedes.
Ay, Dios. No, está bien.
Vic, tenés abierto el micrófono.
Estás acá. Bueno, no sé si está. Creo que estamos en pausa, que vamos a tomarnos unos minutos.
Vic, seguís teniendo el micrófono abierto, ahora lo cerraste.
Ahí está. Maju, te
Es que estoy intentando
consulto.
comunicarme, perdón, pero hay mucho ruido de fondo.
Ah, ok.
Digo que creo que estamos en pausa unos minutitos, me parece, entiendo.
Ah, sí, sí, sí. Sí.
Después sí te voy a tener permiso para compartir pantalla.
¿Querés que lo habilitemos ahora? Owen, can you provide her permission to share screen? Perdón.
I have asked in the production channel. I can't do that, but I've asked for that to be done.
Ok,
Si
Milagro,
no,
no
te
sé
puedo pasar el documento.
Yes.
I can share the document and you can.
Será mejor si Ivor lo hace. No,
Okay.
see, now you should be able to.
Yes, I understand English. I don't speak that well, but I can understand you, okay?
Cool. That should be done now. You should be able to share your screen now.
I don't have that option yet. Maybe it had to.
Y quizás aparece en un momentito, ¿no?
Okay, okay. I have it now. It's okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Możesz mi dać co-hosting za ovaj?
I think it is correct.
You hear me?
Yeah. If you can hear me.
Yes. So I guess we are back. So we are back in a shared joint space of Zoom. I don't know if we have new people joining in. We are following the safer space guidelines, which are available as a link and also in our Telegram group. If you didn't use Telegram group so far, I would encourage you to do so. We'll keep it open for next days of the conference. And you can always follow up with questions to people who have presented, or if they are not part of the Telegram group, we'll try to connect them to you and back. The next thing on our schedule is a panel. It's a panel on alliances between the Wikimedia movement and independent media. And we are basically going to do this in collaboration with two speakers, Milagro Mariona and Belen De Grossi. And if I'm not mistaken, are they in the room? Yes.
Yes.
We will be hearing again English and Spanish in a regular Zoom mode, did parallel rather than successive as we did in Big Blue Button. So, Vic, do you want to add to introduction?
Yeah, I want to add a little introduction for this panel. Perdón, la voy a hacer en español. Así que espero que también aprovechemos esta instancia para confirmar que español está
Estás en la
funcionando.
canal inglés.
Ok. ¿Y ahora estoy en el canal correcto? Bien.
I
Escucho
can
la
hear you, Flo.
traducción. Pero me voy a audio original, puede ser porque estoy escuchando el intérprete. I am listening to the interpreter myself. Is that okay? Should I be hearing that or should I go to original audio?
Flo, se debe cambiarlo al at the bottom of your screen. You should be able to flip language.
You better go to Spanish or go to English because this will be the same happening to Mariana.
Flo should flip so that Flo is speaking in the English channel now, and you should be in the Spanish channel.
¿Y ahora funciona? Perfecto. Bien, entonces para Mili y para Belu tienen que ir a la sección de interpretación, hacer clic, ir a la sección de español para poder hablar en español y que nos interpreten adecuadamente. Entonces, este es un panel en el que Milagro Mariona de La Nota y Belén de Grossi de Periódica Santa Fe nos van a comentar cuáles son las posibilidades en su experiencia de retroalimentación entre el universo wiki y los pequeños medios de comunicación, sobre todo los autogestivos. Y esta experiencia es una experiencia híbrida que vienen llevando un tiempo a esta parte y nos parecía importante que estuvieran acá para ampliar las alianzas que tenemos como wikimedistas con los medios de comunicación a la hora de reducir las brechas de representación en el ejemplo. Entonces les cedo la palabra, va a comenzar Milagro.
Hola, bueno, muchas gracias Vic por la presentación. ¿Se escucha bien? ¿Se traduce bien? Sí, perfecto. Bueno, como decía Vic, yo soy editora, fundadora del diario La Nota de Tucumán. Para quienes no conocen, Tucumán está a 1.600 kilómetros de Buenos Aires, de capital federal, de la capital de Argentina. Me parece importante como empezar un poco localizando, porque también parte de lo que voy a hablar tiene que ver con la lejanía de las grandes ciudades, de los medios de comunicación y cómo empezar a suplir también esos vacíos informativos que existen en Wikimedia cuando te empezás a alejar un poco de la capital. Voy a empezar compartiendo pantalla.
Mili, por favor, acordate de hablar lento, todo lo lento que puedas. Para interpretar.
Perfecto.
Venís re bien, pero solo por las dudas.
Ok. No, acá en Tucumán hablamos lento. Se ve la presentación. Yo no la voy a estar viendo, no voy a estar viendo mucho de las participaciones, así que si necesitan interrumpirme o lo que sea, por favor, lo hacen. Entonces, alianzas entre el movimiento Wikimedia y medios de comunicación, para mí significó, digamos, como muestra este meme, una explosión, digamos, de posibilidades que nos habilitan a poder contar y narrar las historias LGBT que no han sido contadas, que no están contadas en Internet y no están visibilizadas. Para eso me parece importante empezar a contarles de Rodo Bulacio, que fue la persona que se apareció en mis búsquedas, en mi búsqueda, digamos, por poder construir una narrativa sobre la historia LGBT en Tucumán, que fue un artista, performer, marica, que nació en 1970 y fue asesinado cuando tenía solo 27 años, en 1997, en un contexto bastante complejo también. Tucumán es una provincia muy conservadora y en ese momento estaba siendo gobernada por una persona que había sido parte de la dictadura militar. Entonces, que Rodo Bulacio haya sido una persona abiertamente gay, abiertamente visible, marica, artista, implicaba también mucha transgresión. Su asesinato tampoco fue algo azaroso, sino que fue un crimen de odio al que le pudimos poner nombre recién mucho tiempo después. En esta imagen vamos a ver muchas de sus obras, algunas de sus obras, donde fue bastante pionero porque realizó un casamiento como una obra en pleno centro tucumano, y cuando lo matan a Rodo Bulacio, ¿sí,
Un
Vic?
poquito más lento porque tu traducción al inglés es más difícil.
Ok, perdón. Cuando lo mataron a Rodo Bulacio, no solamente lo asesinaron a él, sino que también prendieron fuego su casa, que era su estudio, y quemaron parte de su obra en un intento de borrar su historia. La historia de Rodo Bulacio trascendió su muerte, porque todo un grupo artístico no dejó de hablar de él y siguió teniendo viva toda su trayectoria en Tucumán, porque realmente marcó un antes y un después. En esta época estamos hablando de el auge de Almodóvar, en donde, bueno, mucha de la obra de Rodo Bulacio se inspira, ¿no? En Almodóvar, y con una impronta muy latinoamericana también, desde el color de piel de las personas que dibujaba, desde los colores que utilizaba para realizar las obras, toda una impronta muy importante para la historia cultural y artística de la provincia. A pesar de haber sido tan trascendental, hasta fines del año pasado, la historia de Rodo Bulacio no estaba en Wikipedia. Rodo Bulacio, además, el año pasado se hizo una obra, un recorrido histórico de su historia en el Palace de Glass, en donde hubo una muestra muy grande, reconocido a nivel nacional, y sin embargo a nosotros nos parecía muy llamativo que no se encuentre en Wikipedia. A partir de eso, bueno, yo ya conocí un poco sobre Wikimedia y sobre el activismo que se venían llevando adelante, así que articulamos una instancia para venir a Tucumán a capacitar, a tener una charla sobre, bueno, de qué manera se puede aportar desde la comunidad. Acá en Tucumán no hay una comunidad de Wikimedia muy grande, ni mucha gente que participa en la construcción de estos artículos o en la construcción de, digamos, de la escritura para completar esta historia que falta, ¿no? Y menos tampoco pensándolo desde el punto de vista LGBTIQ+. Así que a partir, digamos, de identificar que existen estos vacíos de información y de representación en Internet, es que surgió esta alianza entre la nota y Wikimedia. Más allá del caso particular de Rodo Bulacio, que además aprovechaba para poder contar un poco sobre su historia y que siga viviendo en estas palabras, contarles un poco, bueno, de esta experiencia, ¿no? De cómo a partir de esto surgió esta posibilidad, empezamos a hackear la historia tucumana en clave LGBTIQ+. La provincia es una provincia que tiene mucha riqueza en cuanto a la historia LGBT, pero que no está producida, no está contada, no hay fuentes donde poder buscar ciertos datos. y que es clave para poder, digamos, también transformar historias en contenido para Wiki. En ese sentido, bueno, lo que me pareció también muy valioso de esta experiencia que hemos tenido, que se logró que las propias personas que habían sido protagonistas de la historia de Rodo Bulacio, compañeros de ese momento, amigos, han podido ellos mismos, en este evento que hicimos, producir ese artículo de Rodo Bulacio. Entonces, ¿para qué sirven estas alianzas? Principalmente para contar las historias que no están. Además, obviamente que de lo de Rodo Bulacio, nosotros también buscamos generar otros contenidos de otros autores, autoras de literatura de la provincia que también pertenecen al colectivo LGBT y que tal vez porque no existía contenido que esté digitalizado o visibilizado, no era posible generar artículos para Wikimedia. A nosotros nos parece bastante importante como pensar en esta contribución voluntaria que existe de los usuarios para crear y mantener estos contenidos precisos y actualizados, porque desde los medios de comunicación podemos propiciar información que sea adicional, podemos buscar fuentes, podemos ayudar a mejorar la precisión de los artículos en Wikimedia para generar ese contenido que no existe en Internet, a través de entrevistas, a través de digitalización, a través de recolección de información. En nuestro caso, en nuestro medio de comunicación, tiene una vinculación muy cercana a las organizaciones, donde también son fuente de información y fuente también de poder corroborar algunos datos que tal vez no existen. Por otro lado, también las alianzas entre Wiki y los medios de comunicación ayudan a fortalecer la representación de los contenidos que están relacionados con la comunidad, y esto aumenta la visibilidad en línea, asegurando sobre todo también que sean inclusivos y precisos. En esto también creo que ahonda un poco más Belén, en pensar que los contenidos de Wikipedia que se produzcan sobre el colectivo LGBT, sobre todo tienen que ser inclusivos, además de precisos, que bueno, que ya es una característica de por sí de Wikimedia, tener una mirada que sea muy respetuosa y con la posibilidad, digamos, de que sean constantemente revisados, porque obviamente sabemos que, bueno, que es una información que al no existir se tiene que ir construyendo. Por otro lado, esta alianza, y un poco acá también me parece interesante detenerme, ayuda a descentralizar la producción de información para poder ampliar la representación de la historia LGBTIQ+, por fuera de las capitales. Y a la vez ayuda a que sea difundido a través de una audiencia global. En esto a nosotros nos pasa mucho que obviamente yo le preguntaba a Vic si por ahí podíamos conseguir un mapa de calor para ver cuánto contenido existe sobre provincia de Buenos Aires, sobre la capital, y cuánto existe por fuera de las capitales, por lo menos en Argentina, y es obviamente una información que no tengo dudas, pero no tengo certezas, pero tampoco dudas de que es muy dispar. Es muy dispar también en la participación de la misma comunidad de Wikimedia, de lo que tiene que ver con la provincia, de lo que tiene que ver con el resto de las provincias, digamos, de la Argentina. Entonces, esta alianza con medios que puedan ser de otras provincias, que puedan ser de otras comunidades, ayuda a que la producción de información también la puedan realizar desde otros lugares, porque son otras las perspectivas, porque son otros los puntos de vista de los cuales se pueden narrar, y porque además también hay mayor protagonismo de estas personas, ¿no? Y como punto 4, pensar que los medios de comunicación independientes promueven la generación de conocimiento libre, como así también puede ser de material fotográfico, imágenes, ilustraciones sobre el colectivo LGBT, que estas pueden ser utilizadas de manera libre. ahora hay abierto una convocatoria de Wikimedia Comunidad, en donde justamente lo que busca es presentar proyectos para poder generar contenido que pueda ser promovido, digamos, utilizado de manera libre. Eso me pareció uno de los puntos muy interesantes porque sobre muchas personas del colectivo LGBT tal vez no hay imágenes o no solamente personas, pero tal vez eventos, no hay imágenes disponibles sobre sus vidas. Entonces, poder utilizar las herramientas que tenemos como medio de comunicación para generar esos vacíos que existen incluso en imágenes y en archivos para que puedan ser circulados de manera libre. Bueno, Wikipedia es lo mejor, la verdad. Hace poco en una discusión hablábamos sobre que Wikipedia vino también a llevarse mucho tráfico de lo que son los medios de comunicación en las búsquedas, pero a la vez también nos trajo otra cosa que tiene que ver con la legitimidad. En Wikipedia también sirve para los medios de comunicación para generar legitimidad cuando se enlazan nuestros enlaces de nuestros medios, porque Google nos beneficia, y además también muestra que, bueno, que eso, que es información que es fidedigna, información que ha sido chequeada, información que está siendo utilizada por una comunidad mundial. Y por último quería dejarles también con esta imagen de, ella es la madre del Rodo Bulacio, donde está con un abanico que surgió después de esta actividad de Wikimedia que realizamos acá en Tucumán el año pasado. Una de las artistas realizó esta imagen, le regaló a su madre, le fuimos y le llevamos impreso el artículo que habíamos hecho en Wikipedia, y cómo a través, digamos, de estas alianzas entre los medios de comunicación más independientes, que apostamos a una comunicación que sea inclusiva, que apostamos a que sea una comunicación que busque hacer una transformación también en el mundo, y en esta alianza con Wikimedia, que justamente también tiene estos mismos valores y lleva estas mismas banderas, una forma poderosa también de hacer justicia de alguna manera y construir memoria. Así que les quería dejar un poco con esta foto, esta imagen, de todo lo que implica, ¿no? Que las alianzas no solamente tienen que ver con cosas puntuales o específicas de los objetivos que podamos tener de alguna actividad, sino que son mucho más grandes y mucho más significativas de lo que por ahí podemos pensar.
Bueno, muchísimas
Dejo.
gracias, Mili, por tu presentación. Bueno, ahí comentaba que hay personas pidiendo que traduzcamos las planillas las slides al inglés, porque llaman mucho la atención. Gracias.
Bueno, después lo puedo traducir y lo puedo
No,
dejar
nos lo
ahí a
mandás y lo hacemos
disposición.
nosotros. Vale,
Bueno,
que sí. Pero muchísimas gracias por presentar tanto el caso de la Rodo como lo que vienen trabajando, lo que también venimos trabajando conjuntamente. Me quedaba pensando en esto que comentabas recién, bueno, que también son como formas de recuperar memoria. Y una de las cosas que, como para hacer la alianza en lo que traías vos y probablemente algo de lo que presente Belu, es que cuando pensamos en la comunidad LGBT, no estamos solo pensando en cómo vamos a recuperar memorias hacia atrás, como es el caso de la Rodo Bulacio, sino también cómo vamos a construir memorias hacia adelante. Y ahí también volvemos a considerar que las alianzas con los medios de comunicación que son afines, que están como cerca de las luchas de la comunidad LGBT son importantes. Es como cómo cubrir una actualidad que sabemos que en el futuro va a ser significativa. También esa pregunta, ¿no? Como hacia atrás y hacia adelante esa construcción de memoria presente. Bueno, muchas gracias, Mili. Le vamos a pasar la palabra a Belén. Ahora va a tomar la palabra Belén de Grossi, que viene de Periódica Santa Fe, que es otro pequeño medio de comunicación de una de las provincias de Argentina. Belén, ¿estás por acá?
Sí, acá estoy. ¿Me escuchan bien?
Sí. Belén, por favor, hablar lento, que te traducen al inglés y esa traducción es siempre más difícil.
Va a ser lo más difícil de todo, hablar lento. Mi primer comentario es para Mili, que habló en español, pero apeló al lenguaje universal de los memes, que me parece que para este tipo de cuestiones está más que espectacular y me da un poco de envidia que no se me haya como un poco ocurrido a mí. Pero bueno, bueno, buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches, dependiendo de dónde nos estén viendo. Muchas gracias por habernos invitado a formar parte de este panel. Mi nombre, como decía Vic, es Belén de Grossi, yo soy de la ciudad de Santa Fe, una ciudad de 700.000 habitantes de Argentina, una ciudad grande, pero no tan grande. Y formo parte de Periódicas, que es un colectivo de periodistas compuesto íntegramente por mujeres lesbianas, travestis y trans de la zona. Es un medio local, es un medio regional, y un medio que está desde un principio pensado para cubrir la agenda de esas mujeres lesbianas, travestis y trans que en los medios hegemónicos de comunicación no estaban siendo representadas. Ese es el primer punto un poco que yo venía a comentarles, que quizás la observación que nosotras hicimos del mapa de medios de la ciudad de Santa Fe que nos llevó a crear Periódicas, es una observación que más tarde entendimos que también sucede en el ecosistema de Wiki, como me gusta llamarle a mí, porque hablar de ecosistema me parece que es hablar de algo que está constantemente viviendo y retroalimentándose, ¿no? Entonces, claro, para nosotros crear Periódicas surgió de la observación de ciertas brechas que se estaban dando en la representación mediática de nuestra ciudad. En los medios de comunicación no había una agenda de las mujeres, de cualquiera sea su expresión de género, no había una agenda que tuviera que ver con la territorialidad de los barrios más relegados de la ciudad, no había una agenda del colectivo LGBTIQ+, no había una agenda en torno a los derechos de salud sexual y reproductiva, no había una agenda que recuperara a nuestras mujeres históricas, y por eso nosotros creamos un medio de comunicación para llevar adelante toda esa agenda. Después nos enteramos que esos faltantes eran algunos de los que también estaban en el ecosistema de Wiki, o que eran algunas de las brechas que Wiki pretendía de alguna manera ir cerrando. Por eso me parece que más allá de que siempre tuvimos un vínculo como medio con Wikipedia, con la liberación de contenido, con crear contenido de alguna manera para Commons y demás, porque había algunas compañeras que ya venían con esa militancia, el espíritu de lo que está pasando adentro de este tipo de movimientos que se están dando en el ecosistema de Wiki, y el espíritu que nos llevó a crear Periódicas es el mismo, y que es disputar dos cosas. Por un lado, el criterio de relevancia, ¿no? Un poco eso de lo que hablaba Vic y lo que hablaba Mili también, es algo que para nosotros es fundamental. Bueno, ¿qué es lo relevante? ¿Qué es lo noticioso? ¿Qué es lo que merece estar o no en un artículo de Wikipedia, o en una imagen liberada, o en el horario central del noticiero de la televisión de la ciudad, o en la tapa de un diario? ¿Por qué lo relevante siempre es lo que le pasa al varón blanco heterosexual de clase media alta, y no tanto lo que le pasa a toda la gente que queda excluida de eso? ¿Por qué lo relevante periodísticamente en torno a las mujeres y a las personas del colectivo LGBTIQ+, tiene que ver siempre con la violencia? Las únicas historias de las mujeres que se relatan son historias signadas por la violencia. Nunca hablamos de las mujeres cuando hablamos de logros, de pequeños quehaceres de la vida cotidiana, de maternar, de aprender a armar bicicletas, ¿no? Es como que la agenda de las mujeres estaba reducida a contar historias de mujeres siempre que hubieran sido víctimas de algún tipo de violencia, sean femicidios, violaciones, acosos, abusos. Entonces, para nosotras, desde el principio la idea venía por ese lado, por disputar ese criterio de relevancia. No, las mujeres, las personas del colectivo LGBTIQ+, somos relevantes, nuestras historias son relevantes, nuestros aportes a la trama de las historias cotidianas son relevantes, los espacios que ocupamos son relevantes, la forma en la que nos manejamos entre nosotras, cómo trazamos redes, cómo entramos en la política, cómo entramos en la ciencia, en la medicina, es relevante. Somos tan relevantes como cualquier hombre blanco heterosexual de clase media, académica, etcétera, etcétera, etcétera. Disputar ese... Sí.
Vengo a pedirte un poco más lento.
Perfecto.
Muchas gracias.
Pensé que estaba hablando lo más lento.
Que locutora.
Es una buena excepción. Yo soy locutora, que es periodista radial. Entonces yo estoy acostumbrada a hablar. De hecho, estoy en la radio en este momento. Bien, entonces, dos ejes de trabajo que nos acercaban a Wikimedia es lo de disputar el criterio de relevancia. Y me lleva a lo que decía Vic y bastante a lo que decía Mili recién. El segundo eje es entender nuestro trabajo periodístico, comunitario, colaborativo, cooperativo, como un trabajo de una arqueología del presente. Es decir, nosotros estamos constantemente creando un archivo del presente, un archivo en tiempo presente, de historias, de imágenes, de voces. No sé si ustedes se dan una idea de lo mucho que nos cuesta a los periodistas radiales recuperar voces de personas. Me parece que es quizás lo más complejo de ejercer cualquier tipo de periodismo. En este sentido, generar ese archivo del presente nos parecía fundacional para nuestro medio. Contar historias hoy que mañana se puedan repetir. Disputar hoy el criterio de relevancia de lo que va a ser relevante dentro de 5, 10, 20, 25 años. Dejarnos atravesar por esos procesos históricos que a las mujeres y a las personas del colectivo hace décadas en nuestro país, por lo menos, entiendo que no todos los países es igual, pero en nuestro país venimos siendo el motor transformador de la historia y de la política en las últimas décadas, sin lugar a dudas. Dejarnos atravesar por eso, abandonar toda pretensión de objetividad y desde nuestras subjetividades disputar esa construcción de archivo. Ese archivo del presente no tiene sentido si se queda solo en periódicas. Ese archivo del presente y esa disputa por la relevancia no tiene sentido si queda solo en un medio de comunicación de una ciudad, de un país, del mundo. Lo que más nos interesaba era que eso también pudiera ser como una especie de onda expansiva, ¿sí? Empezar en periódicas y quizás que gire, como si fuera la cápsula, no me acuerdo cómo se llamaba, pero la Soyuz es la sonda que se mandó con toda la data al espacio, ¿no? Como para que en algún momento la encuentre un alien y tenga data nuestra. Bueno, pongamos que periódicas está generando cápsulas de esas constantemente. Y Wikimedia, entonces, era un espacio que nos permitía también a nosotras darle otra dimensión a ese trabajo que veníamos haciendo. No solamente quedarnos con lo que nosotros producimos en nuestro medio, para nuestro público, para nuestra gente. Disputar también ese criterio de archivo en un lugar como puede ser un espacio como puede ser Commons o un artículo de Wikipedia. Y a su vez esto prolonga más la situación del ecosistema, porque nosotras usamos Wikipedia como una fuente, y usamos las cuestiones que podemos encontrar en Commons muchas veces como un sustento para nuestro trabajo. Y a su vez nosotras generamos para todo ese ecosistema información, fotos, artículos, podcasts, videos, lo que fuere. Y seguimos aportando para ese ecosistema, pero a su vez volvemos a ese ecosistema a plasmarnos cuando tenemos algo de información y de ese ecosistema nos nutrimos. Me estoy enredando mucho, pero espero que ustedes entiendan que acá es como una suerte de casi les diría, de algo sustentable, ¿no? Que se está constantemente retroalimentando. De hecho, yo les quería compartir, por ejemplo, algo que... A ver, pantalla. Estoy desde la tablet y es la primera vez que estoy haciendo esto, así que espero que funcione. A ver.
Por ahora perdiste tu video, pero no te vemos nada en la pantalla.
Bueno, no importa, les comparto el link directamente. Voy a hacer así, va a ser más fácil, les pego el link en el chat para que vean. Es una nota que escribió mi compañera, que si nos está viendo le mandamos un saludo, Carolina Robaina. Caro escribió una nota sobre Silvia Supo. Silvia Supo es una mujer de la provincia de Santa Fe, que durante la última dictadura cívico-militar aquí en la provincia en el país, en realidad, durante la década del 70 y parte del 80, fue detenida, fue torturada, y durante los 2000, cuando se empezó con los juicios a las juntas militares, Silvia aportó su testimonio. Es una de las pocas sobrevivientes de esa causa, con lo cual su testimonio era muy importante, porque además es una persona que estaba en un completo estado de lucidez para aportar su testimonio sobre lo que había sido su detención, su tortura, y quiénes habían sido las personas que habían estado detrás de eso. Bueno, Silvia Supo fue asesinada mientras estaba en ese proceso de prestar su testimonio. Con lo cual, se generó sobre su figura, esto hizo que lamentablemente Silvia se transforme en una especie de bandera, ¿no? Para todos y para todas, que de alguna manera nos vimos interpeladas por su historia, sobre todo las mujeres, esto hay que decirlo, y la tomamos como una especie de referente o referenta a la imagen de Silvia Supo. Carolina, si ustedes leen esa nota que yo les acabo de compartir, no solo recupera la historia de Silvia, en donde gran parte de esa historia de Silvia que recuperamos tiene que ver con un trabajo que alguien ya hizo en Wikipedia, en Wikimedia en este caso, editando su artículo. A su vez, la historia de Silvia está muy atravesada por una lectura de género, porque ella sufrió violencia sexual adentro de la cárcel, particularmente cuando fue detenida por el gobierno de facto. Entonces ahí era importante que la historia estuviera contada sin lugar a dudas desde la perspectiva de género. Pero además Carolina recupera todo un trabajo que se hace desde la toma de fotografías de murales que se hicieron de Silvia, que fueron acciones que se hicieron en la calle para que se visibilice la historia de Silvia en la ciudad donde Silvia vivía, que era Rafaela, y en otras ciudades de la provincia. Entonces la historia de Carolina aporta más información a algo que ya estaba en Wikimedia, pero usa información que está en Wikimedia, pero además revaloriza esa información, pone una historia atrás de ese artículo y de cómo los compañeros y compañeras que hicieron el artículo de Silvia y liberaron las fotos de los murales, estuvieron trabajando sobre ese artículo en particular. Fíjense que acá es como una mamushka, como esas muñequitas que uno va sacando una fuera de la otra, de un trabajo colaborativo entre lo que está en el universo de Wikimedia, de lo que ya estaba ahí, que solamente había que recuperar, del trabajo de Caro periodístico, de buscarlo, de llenarlo de más historia, de ponerle más relevancia aún a esa historia, y lo que terminamos viendo en ese artículo que plasma no solo la historia de la memoria de Silvia Supo real, la nuestra, que la recuperamos y recuperamos su historia, de la memoria digital de Silvia Supo, de lo que le va a quedar a las futuras generaciones de esa historia de Silvia, que no van a ver solamente a Silvia recuperada desde un lugar de víctima de la última dictadura, sino que también van a ver esta otra historia de la cantidad de jóvenes que después la tomamos como bandera y la hicimos mural. No termina la historia de Silvia cuando Silvia muere, asesinada, sino que se sigue recuperando la historia con esa recuperación histórica que hicimos los jóvenes y las jóvenes de la figura de Silvia Supo. Para no ser redundante, y para ir dándole un cierre también, porque entiendo que estamos con tiempos más limitados, estos dos ejes de los que yo les hablo, el criterio de relevancia por un lado, y el de generar nuestro archivo del presente por el otro, son dos ejes en donde todo el tiempo tenemos que estar pensando y repensando nuestra agenda. Los periodistas le decimos agenda a los temas que están de alguna manera en un top durante algunos días o en una suerte de lista de importancia durante varios días, cuáles son los temas de los que se habla. ¿De qué se habla? Bueno, esa agenda también se la puede disputar. A esa agenda la podemos nosotros manipular. Manipular en un buen sentido. ¿Por qué hablamos de esto y no hablamos de esto otro? ¿Por qué siempre que hablamos de mujeres en términos de violencia? ¿Por qué siempre que hablamos del colectivo LGBTIQ+, lo hablamos en términos relativos a la marginalidad? O con una idea vetusta, viejísima de las enfermedades de transmisión sexual. O para reírnos. En la televisión argentina durante mucho tiempo se hablaba de las personas del colectivo LGBTIQ+, para reírnos. Eran objeto de burla, no se hablaba de otra cosa, no se hablaba de otra manera de las personas del colectivo que no fuera para reírse. Entonces me parece que en esos dos ejes es que nosotros empezamos a trazar las distintas alianzas estratégicas que trazamos. Saluden a mi compañera que me prestó la oficina y ahora se va. Las distintas alianzas que nos fuimos trazando, tanto con Wikimedia como con otras organizaciones que conocimos gracias a formar parte del ecosistema de Wiki, otras organizaciones de periodistas, otras organizaciones sociales, otras organizaciones de base, como decimos en Argentina, otros colectivos de mujeres, otros colectivos de wikipedistas, que de alguna manera nos ha servido el ecosistema de Wiki para hacer ese nexo, ese lazo, para de alguna forma ponernos en contacto. Me parece que si nos atenemos a estas dos bases, para cualquier comunicador, para cualquier periodista, disputar el criterio de relevancia por un lado, y generar el archivo del presente para que el día de mañana no quede supeditado a la nada la construcción de la historia que estamos nosotros viviendo hoy, atravesando, y de quiénes eran los verdaderos y las verdaderas protagonistas, y qué aportaban esas protagonistas a esa historia, y cómo nos sentíamos, y cómo pasaba. Ese me parece que es un trabajo, como les decía, de arqueología del presente, que nos puede interpelar a todos, a periodistas, a editores de Wikimedia, a fotógrafos, a locutoras, a docentes, más que nada, por ejemplo, los docentes, a escritores. Creo que sobre esos dos ejes hay un montón de cosas que se pueden trabajar, y es una agenda que lo único que va a ser seguir nutriéndose. Así que incluso este espacio forma parte un poco de esos dos ejes, de poder seguir disputando de alguna manera el criterio de relevancia y por qué nuestras historias son relevantes, y de alguna forma retomar esa discusión acerca de cómo generamos ese archivo del presente para no dejarlo de vuelta supeditado el día de mañana a cualquier cosa o a cualquier otra persona que venga y que lo cuente. Agradezco nuevamente a Vic y a todos por haber pensado en nosotras, y les dejo la nota de Caro, porque es la que de alguna manera me pareció que era más interesante traer por esa sinergia que se hacía entre el contenido que había en Wikimedia, en Wikipedia en particular, y lo que Caro después le agregó y de alguna forma terminó plasmando ahí, pero los invito y las invito a que sigan nuestro trabajo como periódicas, tanto en la web como en las redes sociales, porque hay bastante que está pasando en este sentido y que va a seguir pasando porque este año tenemos varias líneas de trabajo abiertas con los distintos ejes del ecosistema de Wiki, así que por suerte estamos muy contentas de seguir trabajando en este sentido.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias, Belu. Bueno, agradezco de nuevo también a Milagro, gracias a las dos por venir, por contarnos lo que vienen pensando en torno a Wiki en relación a sus trabajos. Nada, no mucho más que agregar. Entiendo que vamos a una pausa. Owen, ¿podés confirmarme o Z si vamos a poner una pausa? Cierto. Bien, entonces nos vamos a tomar un descanso y el horario de regreso no lo tengo disponible. Si alguien puede, por favor, compartirlo en el chat para que sepamos cuándo nos volvemos a encontrar por acá. Bien, ahí está el contacto de Milagro por si alguien quiere guardar. Bien, volveríamos hay 5, ¿cierto? Excelente. Bueno, descansen, muchas gracias. Gracias por estar acá. Un abrazo enorme.
16:05 UTC.
Ok. Chao.
Gracias a todos.
Did it stop or got paused? The recording.
Paused.
Okay, good.
The
Because
announcement says stop when it's paused.
Yeah. Okay, so next we show the video by sharing a link or we